All right, thank you all for joining us this evening. As typical, we will start off the evening with public comment, but we have no public comment, so we can move on from that, and we will go into a lovely presentation of updates and considerations from science, STEM, and professional development with Dr. Bloom.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for our curriculum committee meeting. It's been a very long time since I've seen you, roughly 24 hours, so I hope you are all well this evening. Thank you to those who are attending here this evening to hear some of our updates, and thank you to those who are listening in at home. Tonight, I want to, my apologies, let me just use the clicker here. There we go. Tonight, I want to talk you through our agenda items. We'll begin this evening with our K-12 Science and STEM Supervisor, Mrs. Christine Tamburino. She and I will talk you a little bit through a FOSS Pathways update. I'm then going to continue our work with Mrs. Tamburino, as well as Mr. Ryan Ruckel, our 8th grade STEM teacher, and our 6th through 12 STEM coordinator, and Ms. Erin Reichert, our K-12 instructional coach, to talk to you about a really unique opportunity for Penridge School District through a company called STEM Plus M. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then finally, I will present to you this evening the opportunity for 2 professional learning opportunities, engaging with Dr. Jenna Rufo and Dr. Tracy Severins, and I'll present that information to you as well. I believe what we're looking at, just for your information for our February board meeting, would be at least 2 actionable items, the first agenda item and the second. The third agenda item will either be on a curriculum agenda item or a finance committee item, because the contracts need to be approved. So that will be something just for consideration for the board. Okay. So I wanted to just introduce the reason that Christine and I are here tonight for a bit of an update. So back in October, I believe that is correct. Thank you. Back in October, when we were with the previous board, and we've provided a little bit of update to our current board as well, we were very pleased that you joined us in our approval for FOSS Pathways, which is going to be our curriculum for 3 to 5 in elementary school moving forward. We are fully committed to that. We believe it is the right choice for grades 3 to 5. However, we are in a place right now as a district where we are also looking at instructional schedules and instructional choices for elementary school, meaning we want to decide if we want to departmentalize our elementary school classrooms. For the public and for the board, departmentalization means that oftentimes we will look at secondary grades like 3, 4, and 5, sometimes just 4 and 5. That will allow those teachers to teach only science or only social studies, and classes will switch for those potential subjects. Departmentalization has also occurred where everyone teaches RELA and they departmentalize for math, science, and social studies. You may be wondering why departmentalization is something to consider. Oftentimes, much as our secondary counterparts in middle school or high school, it's about having some depth to the content knowledge and not just breadth across the content knowledge as elementary school teachers are trained. I'm an elementary school teacher formally, so I was trained K to 6 in every single subject, right? So I had a passion for teaching, and I got the chance to teach all of those subjects. When I became a 5th grade teacher, I ended up in a departmentalized model, which means I taught reading, math, and I taught science, which allowed me to go a little bit more deeply with my content because I was an expert in that. It's something Penridge is considering, and there's a financial implication to that we want to bring you tonight for consideration on potentially holding the purchase of FOSS Pathways for 1 year. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christine so she can explain to you the financial considerations.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. As Dr. Bloom mentioned, thank you. This is a consideration that has come out of interest within our district, and it does have financial implications, especially as we consider making a large purchase for our 3 to 5 science resources. So we just wanted to make sure that we had these conversations and were able to make a fiscally responsible decision as we move forward. So what you're looking at right now in our first column is really the current number of teachers who are instructing science in these grades. So at this time, we have roughly 3 sections at each of our schools, which in total would be 21 teachers who are currently teaching science. And what that means is we are anticipating, with our FOSS approval, we would be purchasing 21 individual class kits to outfit our schools with the resource. One of the models for departmentalization, which would be one that would have all of our teachers teaching RELA and then potentially departmentalizing for math, science, and social studies, might bring that number down to 7 teachers. And so that results in a significant reduction of the investment materials, which would be kind of those classroom materials that could be reused by class, by each of the classes that are kind of moving through that classroom. So with that, with that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the reduction in price. So I'll stay here for a moment. With the FOSS Pathways investment materials, we're looking at each kit costing potentially $3,000. And so with a total investment at just the grade 4 level of close to $62,000, the reduction would be significant, of around $40,000 if we were to reduce the investment to the 7 teachers that would be teaching through a departmentalization model. So that's really just to give you a ballpark of understanding. The total investment materials that we had previously requested is around $221,000 for the program. So when we look at what the investment would be, I think that the repercussions of kind of looking at this and making a decision about departmentalization beforehand makes the most sense for the district. In the meantime, we have had some really positive feedback from our teachers regarding mystery science, which is the current resource utilized in our classrooms. And primarily, there's been a strong push in grade 5 as we lead up to our first Steels Aligned PSSA assessment. And Erin and I have been working very diligently with our teachers on this work and have just received a lot of positive feedback. So in the interim for this 26-27 school year, we would like to continue utilizing the mystery science resources. And one of the most needed materials would be the science packs, essentially, these mystery science packs, which provide the really the hands-on investigation materials and those consumable materials for the teachers. So the request tonight would be to purchase the mystery science class packs for those teachers who are teaching grades 3 to 5 with a total request of $34,020. And as we look ahead to the purchases that we are anticipating for science, we see that the October presentation did request the K-2 science mystery packs. And in this presentation, I am requesting the 3 to 5 mystery science packs. Again, this is for the 26-27 school year. We're hoping to continue our conversations about departmentalization and be able to present to you probably in the early fall, mid-year, what our anticipation is with the FOSS Pathways curriculum and the decisions that have been made regarding departmentalization. And I will bring that to you. I've already in conversation with FOSS Pathways, and they're very excited to partner with us. So they've talked about a couple different models that they've seen in different elementary schools. So they're not a stranger to this type of departmentalization. I think they were quite familiar with it when I brought it up to them. So we are still in conversation about how that would look for us. Are there any questions?
So you said the original ask for the 26-27 year, right? You have here 63,000, but you said the original ask was 200,000?
For the investment materials, the FOSS Pathways program also spoke to us about breaking that investment material purchase over several years. So the cost to the building, to the district, I believe for year 1 was around 160,000, but they were kind of spreading out that investment over time for us. Looking at the total investment materials, that was just the sum of, that was kind of all inclusive.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. What inspired this? Because I know it was like 5-6 years ago in elementary, there was the changing of students from different classes, and they stopped that. So what inspired this potential change?
A lot of our conversations regarding social studies and science has come out of the new STEEL standards for this department, essentially. We see a lot of opportunities for teachers to dive more deeply into those discussions and conversations. And what I've seen so far is when teachers have the opportunity to teach and instruct a lesson more than one time, to focus their planning and attention on a subject area like this that can be quite complicated and complex, it allows for them to become that expert. When we talk about professional development, it also allows teachers to be supported in kind of fewer content areas which they have to master. But really it's about the students and making sure that they have a rich instructional experience and that they're able to kind of ask deep questions to dig into topics a little more intensely. And that's what we're seeing on kind of the expectations for the Steels Aligned PSSA is it's asking questions that are hoping that students are able to critically think, analyze, and apply to novel situations. And we feel that a departmentalized model might be kind of an opportunity for us to support our teachers and students in experiencing that with success.
Do we know if other schools around us have started doing this, or if they do? And do you know have you gone there and see what that program looks like, or?
Absolutely. So I have been a part of a departmentalized model in all of the other school districts I've been a member of. So whether it was a teacher, assistant principal, or principal, the school district that I just previously left moved to a departmentalized model 3 through 5. So I've seen departmentalization around since I began teaching in 2004. A lot of times it is about simply having the opportunity for depth over breadth for elementary. There's also the opportunity, especially for 5th grade students, to get a little taste of what it's like to change classes before getting to a middle school model. So understanding what it takes executive functioning wise to be able to bring your materials, be in that classroom. So absolutely, I've seen it happen across other schools, and it can be very successful. We just need to make sure that we have the right professional development in place for the teachers, make sure we have the right administrative support, and make sure that we are intentional about our planning with it, which is why we didn't want to rush saying, I think we can get that done by the start of the 26-27 school year. I mean, I could put it together, but it wouldn't be done well. And I'd rather take my time and do it well and have it in place for 27-28, save the district fiscally if we don't need 21 copies of something and 7 instead. But that's just going to take a few more conversations, and I think that we're poised to start them in summer into fall.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing more about this. Another question, because FOSS is science, correct?
Yes.
And looking at the mystery science packs.
Yes.
Our kids aren't losing anything from not having FOSS
No.
to then doing this. So they're not losing, or they're still benefiting.
They are. This mystery science curriculum is fully Steels aligned, and so they are experiencing the same content and skills standards that they would with the FOSS pathways.
Thank you.
And thank you.
I have a question, sorry.
Yes.
How does this work in a building then? So if there's one science teacher, do they have an office? Do they go to the classrooms? Like, how does it work?
There's a couple different models
Okay.
for departmentalization, which is kind of part of our process right now.
Right.
I'll let Dr. Bloom speak a little.
So absolutely, there's a lot of different models. It's one of the reasons that we're not ready to do this yet, because I'd like to explore some of the different models with our administrators and our teachers and things of that nature. But I'll give you a few examples. So let's say that you're in Dr. Bloom's homeroom. Okay, I'm a 3rd grader. You get to be in my homeroom. And as your homeroom teacher, I'm going to teach you reading. I'm going to teach you math. I'm going to teach you writing. You're going to be with me for specials, all of the things. And then we get to science and social studies time. And let's say that there are 4 people on my team. 2 of us might teach social studies and 2 of us would teach science, meaning my grade level partner, Mrs. Tamburino, and I might switch classes so that I am teaching science to my class and then we switch and I reteach science to her class. She's going to teach social studies to her class and then she's going to take my class for social studies. So that gives us the opportunity to dig more deeply into the lessons as well as kind of improve our craft as we're doing it because we have the opportunity to run through it more than one time. There's other models where I've seen grade levels departmentalized completely. When I was a teacher in the Central Bucks School District and they were K to 6, in 6th grade they would departmentalize completely, reading, math, science, social studies. So if there were 4 people on a team, each teacher would teach a subject and the classes would rotate. So it's not that there is a dedicated teacher that we'd be pulling out, it's the fact that the classes would switch between those teachers so that the teacher has a content area that they own.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions on this portion of the presentation? All right, thank you, ma'am. I'm still here, so next up.
Thank you.
Unless
You know
it's-
what,
you know,
do you
it's on
mind?
top of your
Yeah, I have a couple other things. Okay, this is an exciting one. So recently, Dr. Barrios was approached, and I believe this conversation started, and please, Dr. Barrios, correct me, 2 years ago?
Yes.
Yes, almost 2 years ago. I was not here at that time, but I am happy to be a steward of moving the work forward. But 2 years ago, Dr. Barrios had the opportunity to connect with our Navy and our Marine Corps for our 250th anniversary. And there was a lot of planning that went into this. We're talking fanfare, we're going to get visits, we're going to have opportunities for presenters. And unfortunately, not all of those opportunities came to fruition, not just at Penridge, but at some other areas, other districts as well. We ended up finding out that a lot of the celebrations went down to Philadelphia School District, maybe a little bit closer to the Naval Shipyard, if you know where that is. So we just didn't have as much connectivity as we would have really liked as a district. So Dr. Barrios was able to connect with a fellow superintendent in Bucks County, for an opportunity that was presented to him that would look at a company, STEM plus M, and M stands for manufacturing. I'm saying that because the first time I saw it, it didn't occur to me to ask what the plus M was. So I would like to make sure I tell you up front, STEM plus M, and I'll give you the other STEM acronyms in case you need them. But this is an opportunity that was presented to Dr. Barrios that he brought to our team that would allow us to potentially receive a grant funded through the Navy to enhance our 7th grade STEM programming. And I'll give you a lot more information as we go through. But once again, if you tuned into our last curriculum committee meeting, this is an opportunity brought to us from the vision of the superintendent, directed to my curriculum team, and it's really our honor to be able to see how we can move this forward. So STEM, in case you're not aware of, stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. The M is manufacturing. And we have an opportunity, a unique opportunity, to be one of only 4 districts in the state of Pennsylvania to be able to receive a grant from the STEM plus M Navy-funded company that would allow us to receive almost, if not more than $1.5 million worth of STEM material for our 7th grade classes. And that opportunity would certainly put us on the cutting edge of what we could present for our middle school STEM enthusiasts, as well as uniquely position us to make sure that our 8th grade programming, which is already robust and getting us ready to come into high school, would really be set up very well for our 7th grades transitioning into 8th grade. So tonight I'm going to show you a brief video that goes over a little bit about what STEM plus M is. It is a hands-on, future-ready learning opportunity. It is fully integrated and hands-on for our students. It aligns to our STEEL standards, and ultimately it is designed to replace the current 7th grade curriculum with this more robust programming. So bear with me for just a moment, and I'm going to get to a place where I can show this to you as a video.
I think there is definitely a misunderstanding about the opportunities within the trades. And instead of thinking it maybe in the terms of a fallback, it could actually be the launch.
A lot of times in education, we have focused on inside-the-box thinking, limiting kids the pressure to go get a 4-year degree.
STEM plus M prepares these kids for problem solving, construction, manufacturing, infrastructure, things that this country desperately needs.
Working with my hands in STEM plus M has made me more confident. It's taught me that I can be patient and that I can do hard things.
I really want to be in the science field because of STEM plus M.
We really need to be honing in on creating critical thinkers who can make the pieces of the puzzle work together to make us all more successful.
In research and design, you do a CO2-powered car, and you get to launch that off at the end of the semester. Seeing it go down the track after is very cool and just makes you feel proud about yourself.
The students are communicating in an authentic way. They're measuring in every single unit, and I've never really seen a program arranged that way.
This program has enhanced the way that I teach.
STEM plus M has opened my mind up to so many more opportunities.
STEM plus M is giving me opportunities to bring my ideas to life.
I absolutely think about my classroom representing the future workforce for America.
I'm so proud that that actually played and that you all heard it. Oh, so much so that we're
There
going
is
to
definitely a misunderstanding about the
Okay, hold tight.
opportunities within the trades. And instead of thinking it maybe in the terms of a fallback, it could actually be the launch.
A lot of times in education, we have focused on inside the box thinking, limiting kids, the pressure to go.
Plus prepares these kids.
I think I opened it so many times that it just was going to keep playing. So that's my nerves. No one else's fault. I do apologize. There we go. We're good. There you go. Thank you. Sorry. When I don't know exactly what to do with technology, I just keep hitting it and hope that it turns out for me in the end. So, friends, I have such a strong team behind me to tell you more about this, but I want to just share the opportunity for our kids to have these hands-on experiences where they actually get to see the authenticity of their work and they actually get to see how they can contribute to society in a way that's not a traditional pathway. This program stood out to me so much from others because it kept the hands-on learning as the pure focus here. And if you've never seen a student build with their own hands and then watch their creation take off in front of others, that's the joy that makes it memorable in the education. So I am thrilled to turn this over to Mr. Ruckel, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about this opportunity.
That's all right. We did meet on the 23rd, and I think the most impressive thing, or one of the most impressive things, that both teachers and administrators were, generally excited about this. I mean, there's not a whole lot to not be, to be honest with you. I became a STEM teacher 100 years ago because it was the only class that made sense to me. You learned a skill or, a theory, and then you use your brain, use your hands, use tools, equipment to build, to create and manufacture, and that's why I'm still doing it, to be honest with you. And you want to talk about, future-ready skills, this is it, to be honest with you. And, I've been here, I think, 27 or 28 years, and I haven't had any experiences like this. So I think it's to be honest with you, it's a genuine opportunity. And, like I said to a few of you before when we met with the STEM plus M folks, bottom line, what I want my son to have, and the answer is yes. So, and I think, like Christine said earlier, we have a really strong 8th grade program. I'm pretty proud of that. We were up for 2020 Program of the Year, but we know how that ended. So there's no plaque over there, but when we were given the opportunity to create this new STEM program, I think that was about 8 years ago, and Ms. Reichert was, integral in that role as well, but we knew it was the best, and there's been a lot of people, coming in and saying, okay, what are you guys doing and how you doing it, and and we're pretty proud of that. And I think, honestly, if this at the 7th grade level, I think that's going to give that program a real shot in the arm, and then it's going to have kind of a ripple effect and make us even better, and continue in the high school. Ms. Reichert? Thank you.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Erin Reichert, and I am one of our K-12 instructional coaches. On January 21st, district administrators, Ryan and myself, met with the STEM plus M representatives, Mr. Bobby Johnson and Mr. Ray Lanham, here at the district office. And following our initial conversation, Ryan and I took them on tours of all 3 of our middle schools, along with our team, to gain a deeper understanding of what's currently in place, instructional spaces, goals, and of course the needs of our students. During these walkthroughs, the representatives took note of classroom measurements, existing equipment, and all of those notes that they took would help guide thoughtful implementation. We would also like to extend a special thank you to our middle school building principals, as well as our 7th grade teachers, Kim Roberts, Steph Schultz, and Andy Allum, for their flexibility and support during our visits as well. Based on what we observed, STEM plus M will develop potential sketches and formal plans outlining classroom layouts, furniture, equipment, and any software needs. Over the course of the 5-year partnership, STEM plus M would manage the program setup, furnishings, equipment, professional development, and ongoing software support, helping to significantly reduce the operational burden to the district. We concluded our day back here at the district office with many of you and the district administrators to reflect on what we learned and to begin planning these next steps. Christine.
Thank you so much. So we did want to include just a sample layout of the equipment and the design for what the STEM plus M kind of consultants were looking at and trying to determine. This is a rendering of another classroom, not specifically one for Penridge, but it would include the necessary materials. And I've seen some samples of their plans and layouts, which would look very much like this. So this is kind of an all-encompassing, very comprehensive opportunity for us to re-outfit our 7th grade classrooms across the district. So STEM plus M is a definite opportunity for Penridge, and it's very exciting. The program includes fully equipped instructional labs, the curriculum and instructional materials, as well as access to their learning management system. And one of the great highlights is professional learning for all of our staff is included, and that is ongoing throughout the program. Some exciting areas of learning for the students include engineering and design, manufacturing, which includes the CNC and 3D printing, robotics, automation, electronics, material science, and structural concepts, as well as career pathway exploration, which I think is a really wonderful facet of the program and is very much integrated and embedded into the curriculum. As Dr. Bloom mentioned, the total value of the program is approximately $1.5 million that Penridge would receive at virtually no cost. In speaking to them about the financial commitment, it would be limited to only space and implementation costs. The district would be responsible for the necessary infrastructure upgrades, which at this time we've seen might be limited more towards the electrical of the room and just making sure the outlets are positioned appropriately for the sketches so that all of the equipment has access to them. We are anticipating the formal plans which will be shared and the ongoing conversations with the facility departments upon approval. You may.
So what we are looking for at our February board meeting is your approval to move forward with this opportunity. So what this looks like is if our board approves the opportunity, STEM plus M also needs to approve Penridge. Like I said, there are probably more applicants than I am even aware of for these 4 spaces. So once we give our approval and they give their approval, then we would be able to move forward. We've already been in contact with our operations department, and they've done some preliminary work on the electrical pieces. It does not look to be a very large task, and it's something that we would be able to start work on this spring, should the board move forward with this opportunity. So I wanted to make sure that you're aware of that as well. I also wanted to give any board members or Dr. Barrios, Dr. Palmer, the opportunity for those who were at the STEM plus M introductory meeting, just to add any comments that would be worthwhile for both the committee and the community at large.
I liked it.
Excellent.
The program was really good. Short, yeah. I thought it was very comprehensive, and they thought of a lot, but most importantly, the fact that all of you are supportive of it, I think, the most credence in my mind.
Thank you.
I agree. I thought it was amazing. The exposure that we'll give all of our students, the opportunity, and it's essentially free. And I mean, what could you ask for? And the presentation, I believe the gentleman said he's trying to sell something that we have to pay nothing for. So I think that this is an amazing opportunity that we, the district, have, and more importantly, that all of our students, our seventh graders, will be able to take advantage of.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Go ahead, Dr.
I concur with both of your appraisals. When we had our initial meeting with STEM plus M, we asked a lot of tough questions. Were we on the hook? What was the catch? And it just seems like a win-win situation for us. And I think it would provide some excellent opportunities for our seventh graders. Just the exposure to this high-tech, cutting-edge equipment. And it's just a win-win for us. And I hope the board would strongly consider approving this as we move forward. And like Dr. Bloom shared earlier, there's very, very minimal cost to the district as far as infrastructure updates. It's just literally having some electrical drops for the various equipment. But we've been told it's inexpensive and it can be handled in-house, so that we're not going outside to bid for work or anything. So it's just comes with my strongest recommendation. I'd like to commend the team for doing this, presenting a comprehensive
Excellent.
Presentation for the public and the board as well.
Thank you. Any further questions on STEM plus M?
I
thank you.
had one question,
Oh,
though,
yep.
but it's probably for everyone. Like, obviously, we weren't spending $1.5 million on STEM this year, but I'm assuming it's saving us some money also
Yeah.
for what we would have been doing for our existing classrooms.
For
like
seventh grade.
supplies. Okay. Thank you.
Just one last thing just to put up here. Some of the questions that we sort of anticipated were, so what happens when the 5 years are up, right? What do we do then? So just so you know, just like our curriculum review cycle, we would take the same steps. We would take a look at our current infrastructure, our current technology. Do we need to do any potential upgrades? It would just become a regular part of our curriculum review cycle as the other content areas have. And then we've already sort of planted the seeds with our two STEM plus M gentlemen representatives of how could we look at this for ninth graders, right? Is there another place that we can maybe continue to improve these opportunities? You know, we talk a lot about the goals in Penn Ridge, and a future meeting coming up, most likely in the spring, we'll talk more and more about those pathways that we look at for our high school students. And one of the most memorable things that came out of that STEM plus M presentation was the idea that so much of what we're exposing students to through this type of programming is also making sure that they're aware that this is AI resistant work, right? So much of what we do right now may be like, well, we could go to college for that, but in 3 years, will that still be a profession? Will that still be a consideration? I actually shared the somewhat embarrassing example for myself of I did not go to school as a computer programmer. I don't know how to write code, but I needed to write code to be able to make something a little bit more efficient in my line of work. And I asked a AI bot to do that for me, and it did. So did I effectively potentially get rid of something I would have needed to go to a 4-year degree for? This type of programming, this exposure for our middle school students getting ready to decide pathways is so important because there's a lot of opportunity here that could potentially be AI resistant in the future. So I just wanted to add that.
And just to clarify too, it's not like after 5 years they come and take everything.
No,
We still have
ma'am.
it. It's just we're
It's all ours.
responsible for it, yeah.
Yep. That's exactly right.
I knew that, but I was
Good to put into
just putting it out there.
Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. All right, friends. Well, thank you for that piece of things.
Thank you very much.
And I have one last portion this evening. So you have heard me over the last 6 or 7 months talk about Penn Ridge and my desire to partner with my colleagues on continuing to move the needle forward academically here at Penn Ridge School District. And tonight I want to bring to you a professional development plan that I have been working on to accomplish those goals. You will see a graphic up here that I hope you will see a lot more of, depending on the board's approval. But I am really looking to build a framework for professional development that is unified and will help move our district forward in a clear and intentional way. For those who may not be able to see it clearly on here, this is really an integrated model that talks about data-driven instruction, Tier 1 and MTSS, data analytics through our partnership with Linkit, common assessments, teacher practices, and instructional leadership. And I'll go through a little bit more of that as we move forward. So like I said, you've heard me speak about our long-term curriculum goals and our short-term goals. Short-term goals being that we are looking for standards-aligned instruction, consistent academic language, and strategies and routines in our classroom that will maximize the mastery of eligible content. So I find it to be a very important responsibility of mine and of my departments to connect our professional development to that. As educators, so often it can feel like our work is disjointed when we have what we'll call the one-off PD, where there's a PD on this one item or this one item or this one item, and it's hard to see the connectivity of all of it and how we would use that to move the needle forward. So much so sometimes as educators that we think of it as one more thing. My goal is to connect this work together through one professional development system that will strengthen the instruction that we can look at through our data analysis with Linkit, which I'll talk more about, support our educators in moving the needle forward, give us targeted professional development for our administrators as well. Because remember, our administrators are the boots on the ground support system for our teachers that are putting this practice into work every single day. And we want to include them in this professional development model. If we leave administrators out, we're missing a layer. Right? We don't want to go from district office level straight to a teacher. We want to empower a principal to also be a part of that professional development framework. And ultimately, what will that do? Our goal is to have it improve those outcomes for students. If you remember back in the last meeting, I talked a lot about our district's commitment to wanting to see our academic scores rise. And the devil there is in the details. It's in the semantics. It's not about teaching to a test. It's not about just saying, well, all we want to do is raise our test scores. We want that to be a byproduct of the fact that we care about the instructional outcomes for students. Our students are looked at through these assessments. As the educators, why wouldn't we want to prepare them in a meaningful way so they can show everything they know in an outcomes-based way? So I want to show you what that's going to look like through this plan of professional development. Our professional learning will focus on three pieces for the 26-27 school year. Strengthening Tier 1 instruction through a universal design of learning. For the ladies and gentlemen on the board this evening, I'll talk a little bit more about what a universal design of learning is in just a moment. But to give you an idea of what Tier 1 instruction is, Tier 1 is one of 3 tiers in a multi-system of support or MTSS system. Tier 1 simply means it is for all. It is the general education curriculum. It is the core curriculum that every Penn Ridge student has access to every single day. That's what Tier 1 is. It means for all. We also want to make sure that we are building our instructional leadership in every building. Ladies and gentlemen, our principals are excellent at what they do. They manage complex systems all day long. They have different problems that arise. They have different temperaments to meet. They have buildings full of students and educators, and they're really good at making sure that they're continuing to move each day forward. But we don't want to forget about them when it comes to the instructional leadership component of their work. Because so often, perhaps you've seen it, no need to raise any hands, okay, in your own lines of work, but you've probably maybe encountered sometimes someone who's an excellent instructional leader, or maybe is an excellent manager of certain things. But how do we combine forces so that our instructional leaders in our buildings are both able to run the managerial part of their day as well as have that instructional leadership prowess to continue to move the needle forward for our students? We are poised to do that, but I'd like to continue to build upon the professional development opportunities for those principals as we go forward. We have been a partner with Linkit since its almost inception here at Penn Ridge. And we have a partnership with them that is strong. Just recently, I had the opportunity to travel up to New York to see their newest offerings. And as Mr. Wers, who's usually here, would say, he would say, "That sounds great. What quantitative data do you have to be able to show me that that's working?" And I want to be able to build this professional development plan in conjunction with our Linkit data system so that we can show you the efforts that we're making and how they are improving our students' outcome. Okay? So what does that mean? We are exploring partnerships with 2 educational leaders. The first is Dr. Jenna Rufo. She is a former assistant superintendent and special education director, and she is the CEO of Empower Ed. And her expertise lies in that Tier 1 instructional design, which again is that instructional design for all, universal design of learning, which I will go through in another slide. And the focus of this work would be 3 sessions with our teachers during the 26-27 school year on the understanding of universal design of learning as a conceptual framework, how to apply that framework in a classroom setting, and then how to apply that setting in a classroom to the multi-tiered system of support that we're building. Ultimately, the impact we're looking for is a stronger Tier 1 instructional outcome in all classrooms. The goal of building a strong Tier 1 is that less students would need interventions or support or be referred for special education or other services because we'd be breaking down the barriers to make the classroom instruction more accessible for all. And I'll give you an example of that as we go forward. The second educational leader that we are looking to partner with is Dr. Tracy Severins. Both Dr. Berrios and Dr. Palmer, and I believe Mr. Johnson as well, have had experience already with Dr. Severins. I had the chance to meet with her a few times already. It is easy to see why she was a former superintendent, chief academic officer in New Jersey, and she's the founder for Teach for Results. And this is the expert I want to be sitting in a room with when I plan professional development next year for the principals. I want to be able to have her expertise in data-informed practices. She is a leader in aligned assessments. If you have been here recently, Dr. Berrios sometimes mentions how important it is to have common assessments so that we can make sure we're looking at our students in an equitable way to move things forward. She's going to help us with that piece of things so that we can continue to collaborate in a systems way so we have greater consistency across schools. So my goal would be to bring together Dr. Rufo, Dr. Severins, Linkit, and myself to build this professional development plan for the year. And I have a little bit more of an example of that as we go forward. So universal design of learning, I want you to understand the concept behind this because I think sometimes it can be a little bit confused. UDL is all about access. That's what it is for. That is its root cause. So I want to give you an example of what this would look like in the real world. Our real world, in many instances, is designed for universal access. So if you look at a curb cut here on the picture on the left, that is a universal design. So if someone needs to get up onto a curb and they are in a wheelchair, that is already there for them. They don't have to ask for that accommodation. They don't have to seek it out. It is just ready for them if they need it. That is the same for a parent with a stroller. They don't need to ask to be able to get up on the sidewalk. They don't need to go to look for help for it. It is just universally accepted and they're ready for them. Same with a bicycle. Same with an automatic door if you go into different systems. You go in, the door opens automatically. That can help you if you have mobility needs. If you're carrying 2 or 3 or 4 children with you and you need to go through, the door is already designed for you. You just walk into it. You didn't have to ask for it. And the same if you're like me in the morning and you come in with 19 bags. It's nice when I can, flick the thing and it automatically opens for me and I know that I can just walk in the door. It's universal. It's not something that we need access to. And I think of this, and I'll share some examples in the classroom as well. I think of this in the classroom in 2 ways. Think about the information we give our students, okay? We may have someone who is able to see clearly, and we want them to consume information by reading a passage. And if you are blessed to be able to have your vision with you, then you might be able to simply read that passage, and you've got the information, and you were able to do that. But what if you're visually impaired? What if you're not able to see it? Universally, we could set up a system that they would be able to hear it being read aloud to them. That is a universal design that we could make accessible to students. Or if they were speaking a different language and they needed the captions turned on so they could get the different information by watching it. Same with assessment. Universal design of learning will allow us to look at frameworks for students to be able to show that they have proficiency in content in different ways. They may be able to take a written assessment, but maybe they need to be able to do a spoken version instead, or some type of creation or demonstration at the end to be able to show their mastery. Again, it's about opening up the availability for our students. I'll give you one other example. I can't take credit for it, but it's the one that often resonates the most with me, and I've heard it a lot through the Bucks County IU. Think of an elementary school classroom, 4th grade. You're in there and you have 25 students, and every student needs something just a little bit different, okay? All of a sudden, you become a short order cook. So this one needs a bagel of cream cheese, this one wants Cheerios, that one needs eggs, this one wants their eggs scrambled, this one wants them hard boiled. Everybody needs a little something different to be able to meet with success. And suddenly a teacher can become a short order cook. And you're there trying to figure out how you're going to get everything done for all 25 students within the classroom so that you can give them their own pathway to success. Universal design of learning takes away that piece and allows us to simply put out those choices as a buffet. So they walk in the morning and the eggs are there in different ways and the bagels are there and the cereal is there, and we make it so that children can just access what they need in a classroom. So before, you may have needed to have a certain diagnosis to get an IEP or a 504 to be able to use a TheraBand on a chair, or flexible seating if focus isn't able to be there for you, as it is for other people. With universal design of learning, those options would just be there. They'd be in the classroom. They're available to our students. If you need it, use it. If you don't, leave it. But it allows that accessibility to come through, and that's what I'd like to partner with Dr. Rufo in 3 sessions for next year. I think I just said all of that pretty lengthily, so that's up there for you if you'd like to review it. There's the graphic again. This is the timeline of what I'm proposing. I would like to bring Dr. Severance in this spring on May 13th to set the vision with myself and our leadership team for what this work will look like beginning into the 26-27 school year. I would also like to have her come back on August 5th and 6th for our administrative retreat. That is when we will work on the data plans that Dr. Palmer and I presented to you earlier this year. We'd like to continue that with an intentional focus and instructional leadership for next year. We would also like to invite her to be a part of our keynote this year. We think that her message is one of not only vibrance and of intentionality, but of relevance at this point of where we are with Penridge and our instructional needs. And then, again, with the board's permission, we'd like for her to join us once a month in our leadership team to continue to support that data-driven student outcome work that we'd like to see move forward next year. Linkit would also be joining us as partners in these sessions, as they are already one of our partners. And then these are the 3 sessions from Dr. Rufo that I would look for next year to run with our teachers. The first is Teaching Without Limits. That is a UDL framework presentation. Basically, some of the examples I gave you today is what we would give to our teachers. It's not about a lesson plan. We're not suddenly requiring lesson plans. It is simply about a framework. How do I set my classroom up so the most learners in my classroom can have access to the education that I'm going to provide today? So that would be the first session. The second session would be, now how do I take that framework and put it into practice in my room? So we go from theory to practice, because if you've ever sat in a professional development session and you get a lot of theory, and then a lot of times we're like, and go, right? But we didn't tell you exactly what to do when you go. I'd like to bring her back to make sure that we move from theory into action so our teachers feel confident in next steps. And then finally, I'd like to bring her back one other time for an alignment with our multi-tiered system of support, which is something that our district is already heavily invested in. So that's a little bit about the professional learning plan that I'm looking for this next year. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Is there a cost?
Yes, so the cost will be coming to you in the finance department. I wanted to provide you the background tonight, and all of the contracts and costs will come with you with Mr. Dahlbert at the finance committee.
And this is all the buildings, like all the way through to high school also?
Yes, that's correct. So this would be a K-12 model. I will say that our MTSS portion is currently focused on K-8, but all teachers would receive all 3 of Dr. Rufo's framework in universal design of learning, and all of our principals and instructional leaders, supervisors would receive the professional development from Dr. Severance, all in conjunction with my team and the goals we've already set.
And I know there's still a lot to work out, but is the initial thought that when staff goes back to the classroom, they would kind of come up with their own plans, or would it be on a building level that, so I'd imagine if, say, we need software to allow closed captioning on something.
So that's actually a great question, and it really goes into a different conversation that we'll have to have in the coming months into the next year. So currently, Title II under the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, we will need to eventually be compliant as a district to be able to allow all of our documents for students that are forward-facing to be accessible. So that is actually even beyond this professional development. So the professional development in terms of the framework for teachers on how to set that up will go to all, and then we will work with the principals in the leadership sessions to be able to help them move it from theory to action.
I like this. What would be some examples of how this would work in a high school setting? Like I can picture the younger students more than I can picture our older students. Like what would be some of the things that would be an example?
So let's think, and I'm going to pick a subject that I am most comfortable with because I am not a high school teacher. Amazingly, I'm comfortable with language arts, right? I'm kind of verbal. So let's think of it this way. Let's say that you have completed reading a play of Romeo and Juliet, okay? Universal design of learning would say that there is not just one way to prove that you have proficiency with that body of work, whatever the standards associated with that body of work would be, okay? So a teacher may decide to create a summative assessment at the end where you would take a test that's traditional and you would answer some questions about theme. Maybe that's a standard. Maybe there's a standard about connectivity to world events. Whatever the standards are, maybe you take a test on that and you write out all your answers. A universal design of learning would say that's one opportunity to show mastery. Another one might say, we want you as a 11th grade student, if you're not going to take the paper and pencil test, to be able to create for us a presentation through PowerPoint or Google Slides where you can show us how the theme of Romeo and Juliet connects to current real world events and be able to show your mastery in a presentation rather than in a written test format. A third way might be, we're not going to write it, we're not going to present it, but we're going to have you construct something that would show us that you were able to understand the theme and apply it to a design that might bring a solution to a problem in the real world. Either way, you're looking at the same outcome. Did you understand the theme and how it connects to the real world? How you proved it is what the buffet of options would be. Rather than saying you do it this way and you do it that way, we're saying all is acceptable. You choose how you're going to show us that proficiency.
Yeah, and the high school is going to be engaging, looking at grading practices and assessment practices during the rest of this school year, and it's going to be a couple of the goals focused for next school year along with UDO. So it kind of ties into what this whole program that we're looking at.
So I feel like I should know this with a child in college, but is this what the colleges are doing too? Or say there's a student who prefers one method here, but then they go to college and it's all tests.
I can say that colleges having two kids that just got out of college.
All right, and you pay
No,
more attention than I do.
they don't. Colleges are the very last people to improve their instructional practices.
Okay.
I will say that universal design of learning, it's been around for a bit, but the takeoff has been a little bit slow in some places because I think it's the understanding behind. As a teacher, the last thing you want to think is like, okay, so now I have to plan 5 ways for them to show me if they know it. And that's not its point. The point is if we have a lot of different ways to show proficiency, then we're not limiting access for a child to show that proficiency.
That's what I really like about it. 'Cause I feel like a student can be easily discouraged that they aren't good at something because they don't test well, or they're not, but they would be able to do one of the other options very well. And I feel like all these things bolster their confidence, ability to be like, you can do this.
Correct.
I think I really, really like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And listen, it will take some time, right? Because like anything, change means we're going to have to go through all the stages of grief that go along with change, right? So first we'll be in denial, like that's not really going to stay. And then we'll move to ultimately acceptance where we're like, this is what's best for our kids. We want to show that there's more than one way to show that you've mastered something. Because when we leave K-12 education, there's a lot of ways for me to show you that I understand something. I can give you a presentation, I could write it for you. There's very few times where I'm asked that I can only show you something in one way, and that's what I'd like to open for our students.
I think that,
Sorry,
thank you. Make sure this mic is close enough. I have very good feelings about this as obviously a former student, but also a tech school graduate, where I very much so experienced this going to tech school. Don't ask me to sit down and do a math test on a piece of paper, please, because it'll be an exercise and embarrassment for me. But asking me to build something, then I will be able to do that math, no problem. Real quick, easy, and you'll see that final product in a well-constructed, whatever it might be. It was a windmill, which is what I'm thinking of at tech school. So, and, you know, I think it's a valid question asking, what about preparing for college? And that's definitely something to keep in mind, but this still leaves the option for students who might be preparing for college to choose to take the traditional written test. And not all of our students are college bound. A lot of our students are going to go into the trades, they're going to go into the military, they're going to go into something more hands-on. So yeah, this is cool.
One thing I want to add is, you know, I gave a lot of examples about the assessment. And I'm just thinking let's say I'm sitting at home and I'm a Penridge teacher, remember I said, and all of a sudden they're thinking like, okay, so 9 assessments that I'm going to be creating for all of my students. I just want to add that that's a component, and it's one we'll work to. But universal design of learning can start much smaller. And it's important that we start in a place where people feel comfortable to access. I want to build us to that place, and I think that your point is very valid, and I want to be able to show that. But it can be as simple as when you walk into a classroom, there could be options of seating within a classroom that you feel comfortable being able to attend to your fullest self. So in a 7th grade classroom, you could walk in and there could be a beanbag chair, a desk, a standing desk, a wobble stool, and a traditional desk. That's universal design of learning. I do well when I'm seated in a desk and I can see, but I guarantee there's someone in here who would do better if they could move while they're, you know, thinking. Oh, that's nice. And that's universal. Yeah, that's universally designed, right? So that allows, you didn't have to ask for that.
Yeah.
You didn't need a diagnosis for that. You didn't need to come out of your chair and say, hey, Dr. Bloom, could I have a wobble stool? We're just saying, here it is. Take your pick. So I think it's important as we move through universal design of learning, assessment is a component, and for us as board members or as administrators, maybe we go straight there, and I want you to know that that will be a goal, but it can start really small. It can start just in that place of everyone who comes in can feel comfortable to be a part of the instruction in a way that feels present for them. And I think that that's important. And Penridge teachers, if you're listening at home, I just want to make sure that you hear that as well, that this is something that we'll start small with and build over time. Because at the end, it keeps the student and their opportunities for proficiency at the heart of our professional development.
Some of them are doing this already.
Yes. Yeah, there's flexible seating out there right now. It's in pockets. I love to make it.
My son loved it.
bigger. See? Yay.
One of his teachers. So.
Wonderful.
I think it's largely donated too. So that would be nice to get.
I'm sorry. Any further questions? Well, I
I have a
thank.
question, I have more of a comment.
Yes.
I'd be remiss if I didn't commend you for mapping out the entire next year.
Thank you.
How many school districts have their entire professional development plan proposed, and I know it requires a lot of work and methodical thinking and collaboration to move from like more didactic learning that you were describing, Mr. Lefevre, to universal design learning to meet the needs of students. And the MTSS model, I think it will bear dividends for our kids.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Huge credit to, you know, all the people I have the privilege of working with and, you know, being able to run all my ideas by, and hopefully that they stick. So thank you, Dr. Barry.
Thank you for your level of organization.
Appreciate you.
Vision here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
And that will wrap up our curriculum meeting for tonight. On to the next meeting.
Your next meeting?
Oh, yes, my next meeting. Thank you. Our next curriculum committee meeting will be,
Yes, student services.
No, I just.
on March 2nd, because it's not on my sheet.
Here we go. There you go.
There it is.
We didn't rearrange any committees, did we?
The order?
No, just committee members.
I don't think so. Sorry, what was that? Did we
We
rearrange?
didn't rearrange any of the committees.
And friends, I apologize, but I must excuse myself to go to a swim banquet.
Yeah, they're just, we need, can they add us onto that, to the agenda for the members, myself and Carly?
Oh, you're not on?
No, I just noticed.
For which one?
Student services.
Okay.
I'll have,
We didn't tell you.
I know, I'm like, did I miss an email?
Are we ready to move on? Oh, perfect. All right. Well, we will move on to the Student Services Committee meeting agenda. I don't believe we have any public comment. So we have 2 items on the agenda. We're going to start with the elementary rezoning with Dr. Palmer.
Okay, thank you very much. This evening, I'm going to be presenting to you a elementary rezoning project, a proposal to you. This is not asking the board to make any decisions tonight. That's not what this is about. It's to talk about work that's been underway for some time, over a year, that we've been looking at how we can help to reshape the elementary zones in the school. This work has been grounded on enrollment and utilization studies that the board has already been presented with. So tonight we're going to be continuing that work. And I will say, please forgive me, there's maps, tables, things like that to look at as we go through. Just to give some background, so the district has conducted an enrollment and utilization study. When Dr. Barrios and I arrived, we saw that there had not been an enrollment study done in some time. I believe it was 8 years. It's typically done every 4 or 5 years at least in order to look at and project our enrollments. The previous study had been completed in the 16-17 school year, and that was done by Breslin Architects. They did a utilization study, and they used a company called Pennsylvania Economy League, which we will call PEL, P-E-L. So they completed an enrollment study for us, and they presented that to us back in February of 2025, 1 year ago. They had begun that work throughout the course of that fall of 2024. Then Breslin completed a utilization study looking at our capacities of our buildings to look at how many students we had and the percent of utilization. They presented that to the district in May of 2025. Along with that, they had some recommendations for us. And in their findings, they found that we have a continued district-wide decline in enrollment. We had some excess capacity at the secondary level, 6 through 12, and we had uneven enrollment in our elementary schools, K through 5, some uneven growth. So in our enrollment studies, the district has conducted several in the past. The Pennsylvania Economy League conducted it at least 4 different times. If you're looking up there, the first one on that chart goes all the way back to the 2006-2007 school year. The bars on this graph show the projected enrollment, and you'll see that the solid line represents the actual enrollment. So for these studies, you'll see that generally, with the exception of the one conducted in 2012-2013, they were fairly accurate. They had over-projected. You'll see that our enrollment has been falling since 2016. It fell by 1,185 students, 16% decrease in that time to 6,112. I think there might be some, likely some questions about this. I think some people see this and wonder how it's possible that we have decreasing enrollment because we have lots of construction going on. But if we look broader at our population trends across the district, if you're looking at census data from 2000 to 2022, in that roughly 20-year period, I think there were some issues in 2020 with the census, so a little bit of a gap there. So you'll see that our population grew by a significant amount, 9,000 people in the district to 52,000. However, that growth was entirely in adults, making up the entirety of that growth. The number of children within the bounds of the school district fell by over 1,500 during that 20-year period. When we look at housing, of course, yes, we have had increase in building and construction during that time. We had housing units, that includes apartments, condos, single-family homes, increased from 16,000 to over 20,000 in that period. However, if you're looking at that graph over there, that shows the students produced per household. It fell during that period from 0.422 kids per house to 0.332 students per house. And if you look way back in the 70s, when I was a kid, it was like 0.8 children or students per household. So we see that in our district, when you're looking at the migrations and the changes, people simply aren't having kids, and older people aren't leaving. They're deciding to stay in Penridge because Pell looked at housing development, they looked at birth rates, they looked at net migration, so migration coming in, people heading out, and that kind of supports this trend over that time. What they did then was to consider projected enrollments. So looking at the projected enrollments, and they do this in two waves. They look over a 5-year period and they look at a 10-year period. You'll see that projected, our enrollment looks to fall by about 450 students over the next 5 years. It then begins to level out and remain fairly constant, leaving us somewhere in that 5,600 range at that time up to 2034, 2035. Some things to remember about this: a 5-year projection is fairly good in that the kids that we are projecting are currently alive. That is, they've already been born. We're not imagining kids that might be born in the future. And if you're looking at kids in the secondary, obviously we already have them in school, so those are typically better out to about 10 years because we already know who they are, they're living here, and we sort of age progress them upwards. Now, these enrollments are not consistent across the various grade spans. So if we're looking at our K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12 spans, you'll see that there are decreases in our projections at the high school level. So 9 through 12, if we're just looking at the next 5 years, that's a nearly 15% decrease, or 316 students in that time. The middle schools will fall a little bit, about 2.8%, and the elementary schools will continue to drop off by about 3.7%, or 95 students across the district. Importantly, those are not consistent across all schools, obviously, because there are developments in different parts of the school, people move in and out. And so if we're looking at the regions where these schools are, you'll see that individual elementary schools, some are projected to decrease, some are projected to increase in that time. So if we're looking at Schuyler, Sellersville, and Bedminster, they're going to have those projected increases. Bedminster by 8.9%, Sellersville at 4.1%, and Schuyler at 11.6%. Those are generally associated with new construction that's happened in there, and in and around those regions of what's, think about the housing developments that have been going on in there, typically around Dublin, Hilltown. We have one now in Sellersville as well. The middle school enrollments I added for you to see as well. So our middle school enrollments, they are going to drop at South and at Central and increase slightly at North. So with this data, what we did was look at the utilization. So Breslin looked at the number of classrooms that we have, and we're focused right now on elementary. So you see that our elementary schools vary between 14 and 18 classrooms currently being used for grade level instruction. We also have some classrooms being used for special education instruction. So those would be our regional programs like autistic support, emotional support, and life skills. So part of these projections, we had Breslin look at this. We also had ICS examine our data as well. We do know that there is an increase for full-day kindergarten. We are projecting that there will be an impact. Generally, we see about 23% increase from K into grade 1. So if we were looking to say, okay, we're going to move to full-day kindergarten, how many students might we expect additionally to have when we're all full-day K? It would be somewhere about that 23%. And you'll see at those capacities, that pushes some of our elementary schools at or above the 91% mark. And that capacity really means if I took every single classroom and filled it with as many kids as we possibly could, how many kids would that school have? Now, obviously, we don't want to be at 100%. 90% is kind of pushing the limit as an upper boundary, because in reality, you can't have a class that's half fourth graders and half fifth graders, and they're sharing that same space. So we really have to look at how many sections of students we're going to have across each one of the schools. So, recommendations that Breslin brought forward to us. So, back in 2016, 2017, they had a number of recommendations that they updated. One of them at the time was to implement full-day kindergarten. We could do that quickly, or you could do that over time. The district chose not to do that. The district chose simply to look at class sizes and have them fall over that period of time. Other things they looked at was consolidation to 2 middle schools. And again, they could have done that quickly or done it over time. And in that time, we've continued to see the drops that were predicted. I think at the time, the board and the community didn't really believe that those decreases in enrollment would continue, and they have. So recommendations that Breslin made for us was to consider redistricting our elementary boundaries to accommodate for full-day kindergarten at all of the buildings, and to potentially repurpose instructional spaces within the existing elementary schools. If we were to try to do this only with changing instructional spaces, that means like taking full-size classrooms, converting them into smaller group rooms, use those for special education, and then be able to get additional grade level classrooms. And I think they estimated that somewhere in the $2.8 million to do that at our elementary schools, and likely to take a couple years to do that. The other thing that they had suggested was that we consider condensing to 2 middle schools, examining those existing buildings, and reviewing any potential impact that might have. That's not what we're considering tonight, but that was another recommendation. So for our rationale, we moved forward with this because we saw this uneven changes across the buildings. We have really this uneven pressure at each one of our elementary schools. We are anticipating that 23% increase potentially in full-day kindergarten numbers, about 75 students. And we see some additional residential developments, West Rock Hill area, Hilltown, Dublin, Sellersville. And we really haven't had a comprehensive elementary rezoning in more than 10 years. I'd actually, officially Miss Patty at Deibler told me it was exactly 20 years when they did the last one, Miss Patty Keeler, since she, I guess, the mayor of Bedminster, when they moved Bedminster kids into Deibler. So I know that that was somewhere in the 2005, 2006-ish range when this was done before. Typically, this is something you would consider to do every 5 to 8 years. So we engaged with our transportation company, TransFinder. TransFinder Professional Services, in addition to providing the software that does our bus routing, they also can provide some professional services. And what they did was to help us develop zone boundaries. They put together a series of scenarios for us. And the goals that we gave them was to try to accommodate for full-day kindergarten. We wanted to attempt to balance our attendance zones and our building capacities across all of our elementary buildings, minimizing the impact on our existing families that were there, and to plan for a long-term stability. That is, we want to set this up in such a way that we really wouldn't have to do this for as long as possible in that 5 to 8 year time frame. Because you really don't want a kid to ever have to get moved twice. So if you're beyond that 5 years, you wouldn't have to do that. We provided them our existing zone boundaries. They were given the Breslin enrollment and utilization studies, which they went through. We also looked at the elementary capacities, the classrooms, and we did some additional work. And we asked them to provide us multiple options for rezoning. So what we're working on now is a timeline. So we're bringing this proposal to you to take a look at the potential zone boundary changes. We're hoping to push this out to the community to get feedback during the month of February, to analyze that, return to you in March with a proposal based upon the feedback we get from the board and community members. One of the things we're going to do is request parents give us zone boundary exemption requests. We do attendance exemption letters every year for various circumstances. This is something that's typically been done as part of previous rezoning efforts. We would try to let the families know definitely by the end of April, and then in May we'd really have to start looking at doing a rerouting for buses based upon those new zones. And then May through August we'd really focus on transition activities, welcoming events for families, trying to do all the transition activities to make this as smooth as possible for them. So if you look at this map is the current zones of the 7 elementary schools. We're going to share this presentation out. There's a link to the map that is on the school district website as well. When you click on that, it takes you to the street level data to be able to see our current zones for families. When we had TransFinder go through and examine these, you'll see that we had some, much like in the Breslin utilization study, they saw the same impacts using that data, so that we see capacities that were increasing. So under those existing zones, it pushes Bedminster out to 87% in 1 year, and Seiler out to 95% in another year. So I know that's a lot of things to zoom in on. So again, this presentation is going to be shared publicly for people to look through the data. One of the other things we did was we looked very, very closely at the impact of grade level sections and class sizes. So we looked at 2 different scenarios. If we had 25 students per class, or we had the maximums that we set as the district, which were kindergarten at 25, first and second at 27, third and fourth at 28, and fifth at 30. Again, these are maximum sizes. This is not the averages that we're looking for. And I'm just giving you there the example of, this is just Seiler. We did this for each one of the elementary schools, for each one of the scenarios that were generated by TransFinder, and we also looked at it at every single year going out. And you can see that the additional rooms required in the next 5 years, Seiler would need an extra 4 to 5 grade level classrooms, which they don't have. And trailers are not an option. Jamming kids into classrooms is not an option. So we were given 4 different scenarios by TransFinder. Those first 4, we reviewed them very closely. None of the 4 met our expectations. We went through them and found issues with each one of those first 4. Few of the things, they weren't balanced necessarily in terms of the class sizes when we looked at them, and some of them really made huge differences or discrepancies in the number of students who in lower socioeconomic status. We didn't want to create a school where we had 40% of the kids were low income. I think creates disparities. So the 2, I asked them to come back. They've generated 2 additional scenarios, 5 and 6, based on those, and those are the 2 that we think we'll be able to bring forward to you to examine. So scenario 5, you will see that there is primarily movement, Seiler, Grass, and Sellersville, some boundary changes. You'll see some highlighted areas of particular change. Sellersville moving into grass territory in and around Telford. And you'll see a movement in the Deibler-Bedminster line as well. And West Rock into Deibler, there's another movement. And in each of these 2 scenarios, we took a look at them. In scenario 5, we looked at their capacities. Youth in West Rock came out somewhere in the 80 to 84%, so they were pushing closer to that maximum. And we had a variability in socioeconomic status for these schools between 20 and 37% of students low income. So these tables show the 7 different schools projected out to 2031. We primarily focused on those first 5 years where we're confident in the data. The second proposed attendance zones to share with you, scenario 6. In this scenario, it's prioritizing a balance of students in socioeconomic status. It's going to range between 21 and 29%. That's a little smaller, and there's some trade-off with capacities. And it pushes West Rock closer to that 89% during one of the school years. And again, sharing the tables. This is us going out and projecting out that data. Again, this is based upon both the Pell study and the zone analysis done by TransFinder. If we look at all of the maps together, you'll see the existing attendance zones and what the attendance zones would look like in scenarios 5 and 6. Some of the things we really need to look at closely are effects upon transportation. We certainly don't want students to be put into a place where they're now suddenly traveling further to get to their school. But you'll see in our existing map, you'll see kids that are attending Grass Elementary School that live right down the street from Sellersville. So we have issues with our existing attendance zone. So there is an impact, but we certainly don't want to do anything to create longer distances for kids to travel or more time on the buses. We'd like to have a more efficient process. So I think this is going to take some time and some feedback from you, from us, from the community. We've shared this information with our building principals as well as our transportation team. So next steps, we'll be sharing rezoning information with the public. So we're going to be making all the materials posted on the PSD website. We're going to have a special page dedicated to this. We'll be sending a message to all of the families. Part of that, we're generating street level maps, much more zoomed in than this. This is not exactly the right space to be sharing detailed information like that, but we have zoomed in so you can actually see the streets, where the houses are on each of those affected borders. We'll be providing some FAQs for families. Some of that will be based upon the survey, so we're going to be gathering that community feedback by posting a Google form survey to families to share the things that are important to them, options they'd like to see, things that maybe we have not considered as a part of that. We'll be seeking feedback from our district staff, from our administrative team, and from basically everyone who's going to share with us. I'm sure plenty of people will want to share how they feel. Next steps for our implementation, we're going to be hopefully collecting that data, coming back to the board in March with a review and discussion. We're going to talk about what our proposed ideas would be for you. A final board decision we're hoping to get by the March 26th board meeting. The reason we're trying to get that done is we'd like to really let families know sooner than later and provide an opportunity for people to request zone exemptions. What was done in the past was that when Patricia Guth did this in 1990, they would send letters home to each family and say, hey, if you're going to request a zone exemption, please send us a certified letter by the end of March. I think we'll do it by email. And then we would get back to them by the end of April. What they had done at that time, which I think is reasonable, was to allow families who had kids entering grade 5 to request for their child and essentially all of their children to remain at that school for the following year so that their child could get through, after they'd been there for 4 years. That would be assuming that we have the space. If we don't have the space, we couldn't allow everyone to do that. And parents would likely have to provide transportation for those cases. And then after that, we'll be planning for all of our transition activities. We would expect the principals to send a letter to each welcoming family. And just like we do with our kindergartners, we're going to have welcome events to offer people in, to tour the school, meet with the teachers, and have a chance to get to be a part of that. That is the end of that presentation, but I'm sure there may be some questions from board.
I have a quick question. Regarding transportation, currently, is there a sweet spot for the amount of time that students are allowed to be on a bus, or that you're trying to keep them within a certain time?
We don't have a sweet spot, but I remember when I was a kid doing 45 minutes up through Wrightstown to get to Wrightstown Elementary. It was terrible. And I did get to ride the bus to Deibler up through East Rock Hill, which was very, very bumpy. So we want to try to get those certainly in under an hour, because we have to get that holds up our next bus run and the next bus run and the next bus run. So we're going to be working to make them as short as we possibly can.
Okay.
With the, I believe, 75 runs that we have.
Thank you.
Will it also be looked at if there's more buses that will be needed on both of these scenarios? If we need an additional bus for one scenario as opposed to another scenario, is that something that you're also looking at aside from the time on the bus?
That is very, that's going to be difficult, because the time it takes to do those analysis, it takes probably 5 weeks. We are likely going to be reaching out to TransFinder to help us do it once we have made these. But as they were making them, I asked them to keep that in mind, not to do that. So I'm pretty confident that both of these scenarios are not going to increase the number of buses that we would need. And I should mention while we're saying it, we're not looking right now at, not changing anything for middle school sending borders or whatever. So those are in existence. We're not looking at changes of those right now.
So it's by sending school then, like, so everyone who is going to be in Siler next year will be at Central?
It's by the map that's on there. So when you go to
Yeah.
the zone attendance map, we're not changing anything with the middle school zone attendance for next year at all.
Oh. Wait, am I right?
No, I think he's saying, like, if whatever the middle school map says now
Yeah.
is the middle school you would go to. It wouldn't be like all of Siler goes.
Right, so if we redistrict the elementary schools, will it be that some Siler kids will go to different middle schools? Then?
It's going to change the way the schools are divided
Yeah.
for middle school, but it's not going to change the region. So right now, if you go to click on this map, the street level map, and you click on the middle schools, it will show you South Middle School. That border is not changing. The South Middle School kids that were in that border are going, regardless of how we change the elementary.
So you could then change your elementary school for a year, but then go back to your friends to.
Potentially.
Do we have that now? Like, do we have elementary schools that split for middle school?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh, shit. Which
Yeah,
one's
it's
split?
really impossible to make
Yeah.
them. With the 7 middle schools, I did ask that, like, if we were to do this, and they said, don't try it.
Okay.
It's going to be very, very hard to do that.
Which one's split? West Rocco?
I feel like it's Sellersville and West Rock.
Sellersville, Guth.
And Guth.
I think so.
Sellersville does.
Yes, all of Bedminster, I believe, goes to North.
'Cause
I can click on the map.
Thing in 5th grade, they go to Camp America and they bring them together. They kind of try to do that.
We'll do it in real time.
I should have known this.
Do we expect the school bus stop locations to change again?
Ooh, that's Lambertville. The bus stops can actually remain the same while changing the routes. Part of our thing was to try to keep all the stops consistent. So the collection zones for each one of the regions, it pulls the kids to one collection zone, and we just change the route to pick them up.
Okay.
So that's the beauty of TransFinder software. That's why we're using that.
Well,
So
I
if
guess-
you go on here and you click on South, you'll see, I'm sorry.
Pretty.
Now we're in New Jersey.
My fingers are too big. So you'll see the split right here where it goes through Guth and Sellersville
Yeah. Okay,
across, and then these kids get chopped off over here.
got it. Thank you.
So I'm trying to understand, why would it be hard, if, let's say you change the scenario, to have those elementary kids go to the middle school that they would go to now, for example? Like, why would that be hard?
No, it was to get specific elementary schools just to go to one middle school. That's what I was saying.
That would be hard. That's,
Oh,
so what
okay,
I
okay.
was saying where I'm
Just
like, I
say
thought all
everybody at
school,
Sellersville
everyone
goes
went.
here.
Oh, okay,
everybody-
but right now, so then say, let's just say, for example, someone's moved to Siler. That elementary student would then go to Central.
If they're within the current central.
That's what I'm saying, so
So,
essentially a child could meet new people at an elementary school for a year and then go back to their, why couldn't we just transition it to how it is, like where their elementary school is now, right? Why can't we just have those students go to that middle school? Why do we using the new, I guess maybe I'm asking.
We're
this
not
and-
changing anything with the sending middle school, is what I'm getting at. If your house, if you live here, you're in this red zone, you're going to South. That's what it is. So if you're a kid here, if we change, where Sellersville goes, let's say Sellersville comes down here, it's still just these kids going to South in this zone.
so even right now, elementary schools get split. Or middle school, there are some. I just think that Siler isn't one of
It
them.
wouldn't change their outcome then, let's say if what I'm saying is it wouldn't change their middle school.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at
Either
all.
way.
If you
Okay.
look on this
So if-
map,
well, how they
and
are
you see
here,
where your
because you're
kid's going to
saying-
middle
okay.
school, we're not, that.
Thank you.
If your kid's in 5th grade right now, and you go on here, where's my kid going to middle school? this will tell you. This is not lying. We're not going to change that for next year.
I guess I just wanted to clarify, they're not gonna be bumping all over the place, these kids, okay, okay.
Yep.
In
We would like
reality,
to
like,
do this
thank you.
rezoning one time,
Right,
and I hope never to do it again for our children here, when I'm here.
right.
But it looks like where some
Leave
of the
that for
lines are
someone else.
moving anyway, I think all those kids would have, like, even if we moved grass into Siler more, they all would have gone to Central anyway.
Yes.
Like, it's not gonna,
Yes.
Yeah.
This is going to impact a smaller number of
very
people.
similar, okay.
Yep.
They all end up together again at the high school level.
That's
anyway,
true.
so.
Listen, and I'm sure there will be many, many questions that come up. I
Sure.
encourage everyone to share those questions through the survey. You do not have to email me directly your questions. We will compile all of them together through the survey.
Palmer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we're not going to create a separate mail account for that.
I'm writing the email now.
We're going to send that out to everybody, and anybody in the community that wants to fill out that survey, please fill it out.
I
The
also,
survey will be emailed out to everybody? Or is it a site to go to for them to?
We will email it out to everybody in district, and we will post it on the district site.
Perfect.
I just wanted to add that I appreciate all the work that you did that went into this. It wasn't just, I know that we used TransFinder, but you went in to make sure that and things were changed because you were very meticulous in doing this over and over again. And I just wanted just to thank you for all of that work, in addition to everything else that you do, and all the questions I know that we've had even beforehand, and now in the questions that we'll have in the future. I really appreciate it.
This is
It's a very
something that
thoughtful
has
planning
to
that
be
you've
done
done,
right.
yes.
Has to be done. So,
Thank
And
you.
we see a lot of neighboring school districts, some call it a grade reconfiguration, rezoning. So we know, based on our records, that this hasn't been done in 20 years. And we have some capacity issues, and I don't think it's wise for us to sit on our hands. And there could be some discomfort, when we have a proposal here and students are going to another school. But I think it would be irresponsible for us to not review this and not have, we commission studies like an enrollment study through the Pennsylvania Economy League. We hire an architecture firm to help us with capacity. A lot of time goes into this. So now we're taking this data, and to echo Ms. Sharino's sentiments here, there's a lot of information to absorb, but thought has gone into this to make us be at capacity and to appropriately deliver instruction. So we can, so I think best practice is like every 5 to 8 years to look at this information, to have enrollment studies. And when's the last time an enrollment study was done? It was 2017?
yes, so, yes, in the next few years, we will be coming back to you to ask to do another one. Even though this projects 10 years out, you want to come back, I wouldn't want to wait more than 5 years before we start engaging to look at this, because let's say we do have changing enrollment. Suddenly, people with young families want to move into Penn Ridge. That's going to change the dynamic of the school. If you have a turnover, which happened in my neighborhood, and saw massive changes to the school district, it inflated the population with people wanting to come in with young families, those things do happen. So I think that's something we're going to have to closely monitor. So every X number of years, we're going to have to do that and watch. And there could be changes that we have to make in the future. We could suddenly say, oh my gosh, there's a 400-person development going in here that's going to impact a school. We might need to do a change. So that's not something we know right now.
And what was compelling to me was the data that the Economy League had from 2017, how accurate the numbers were. I think they were off the mark 1 year, I believe.
Yeah, I'm confident that we're there, but again, 5 years out, it's very easy to project. Another 10, you can't. Not for elementary. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving right along, we will move on to our next item, which is Phones, Focus, and Future Community Conversation. Mr. Johnson will be presenting that.
So this is a very exciting event. We we've partnered with some community advocates to put on at Penridge. The event itself is seems like a considerable distance away, but it'll be here before we know it on March 4th at the high school in the green gym, which is the older gym. So we've partnered with 3 people to put on this, and it's at the bottom of the flyer. Lois Dotson, who's a licensed professional counselor, Lee Rush, who many of us know, he's a self-described advocate, which I like. I think that's a nice title for Lee. It's appropriate. And someone I just had the opportunity to meet over a few weeks ago, Kirsten McGowan, who's both a parent advocate, and she's the co-lead for an organization, a statewide coalition called PA Unplugged, which focuses on kind of reshaping the culture around smartphone use and social media use for children and adolescents. So the topic of it, phones, focus, and future, a community conversation, that is truly what this event will be. It won't be a stand and deliver, listening to a panel of speakers. We are going to have a very cohesive design to the program. We're probably going to operate in a horseshoe, so there's more collegial conversation among parents. I think one of the things that is a hard conversation for parents relates to social media use and handing over smartphones to kids in sometimes 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Kirsten McGowan started a chapter of wait until 8th grade to provide your child with a smartphone and access to social media. So I'm anticipating a very good night full of conversation and dialogue for parents to talk about either A, how they've decided on what's the appropriate age to give their child a smartphone and access to social media, to parents who have younger kids that want to know what those experiences have been like for parents. So Lee Rush is going to facilitate more of the conversation, small group conversation among parents. Lois Dotson, the LPC, is going to talk more about brain-based research. And Kirsten McGowan will close the night and talk about the impact of cell phone use, smartphone use on children and adolescents at a certain age. We will also share a district perspective. We're not going to share, here's what we think parents should do, but we're going to help engage in the conversation with parents. So exciting night. A lot of this work is predicated on Senate Bill 1014. So if you're bored or you have time on your hands, you don't only have to read The Anxious Generation, but check out the literature related to Senate Bill 1014. So exciting night. Please encourage your family members to come, your neighbors to come. I think it's going to be an informative night. And again, not a night where we are going to make a definitive stance on what parents should do, but more conversation among parents. So again, we're excited to host this event, and hopefully this can be something we do on an annual basis. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to add that I think this is going to be a great event, and I encourage all families to come. Sometimes people see this and they say it's the high school, so it might just be for the high school families. It's not. It's really for all of our families, elementary, middle school, everybody, and it's a conversation to be had. I feel like sometimes parents feel like, I don't want to give my kid a phone, but it's that social pressure, so I think it's a great environment for parents to learn from, the professional counselor, to hear from other parents, and to know that there's other parents that may be struggling with that decision of when to give your child a phone and when to allow them to have social media. So I really do encourage everyone to come. Thank you. I know this took a lot of meetings to organize. And
Believe it or not, this is the 10th iteration of the flyer. So. Brad did a lot of work with rezoning. This little flyer right here, this was a lot of time.
Well, there's some great information that they can share, and I think the people from Wait Until 8th, I encourage people to really think about this while your kids are in elementary school, because once that genie is out of the bottle, it is very hard to put that back in. So
if you have a baby or are planning to have a baby, you should come to this event.
Right? Thank you.
Don't ever give them a cell phone.
All right, so that concludes our Student Services Committee meeting. Our next Student Services Committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, March 2nd. We will now move on to our policy committee meeting.
Okay, this is now the beginning of the policy committee. I don't think we have any public comment. So we'll move right along to the policy update plan from Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. So we are still investigating a potential responsible contractor policy for the district. There are other districts out there that have this policy, and we're just going to determine whether or not it is a good fit for Penn Ridge School District. These are some recently board-approved policies, most recent board-approved policies. And as I scroll through, you're going to see the policies that we will be reviewing tonight. The only one up for second reading is the Policy 249, bullying, cyberbullying. And then we have a series of policies that we will review this evening for first reading. All of them are PSB recommended policies with PSB updates, and some of them are in relation to changes in state code and the law. So we are going to start with, we're going to start with the second reading of Policy 249. And if you recall, last committee meeting, we really focused in on this policy changes in terms of trying to have a digital, electronically submissible form. I want to give Dave Thomas credit for even that evening of the committee meeting. He began work right away on delivering this. He sent it to Dr. Barrios, Dr. Palmer, and myself. We reviewed it. Dave and I then met again, and we were able to design a form that is easily submittable for parents, which hopefully would, I don't anticipate an uptick in bullying forms, but it gives parents an opportunity and community members and even students an easy way to report through the portal. Each of these bullying report forms are on each school's webpage, and it's prominently placed on the district website as well. So I'm just going to scroll through. If there was any comments based on your reading of this policy and our first reading, or any area that the board wants to draw my attention to, or our collective group, please let me know. There were no substantive changes from the first reading to tonight. There were no recommended changes outside of what was already highlighted. If there are any other concerns or thoughts that any board member wants to present, we can use that as a springboard for discussion.
I think we should thank Mr. Trauger for the recommendations. So
Absolutely.
the document wasn't as cumbersome, a little more intuitive and user-friendly. So thank you for that. We took your feedback.
Oh, thank you for taking the feedback and running with it.
Any comments or questions from the board? This policy, Policy 204, was in existence. The changes to this particular policy relates to PA school code. And much of the language that you see within this policy currently are not changes. Some of the language got moved. And that's what sometimes happens with these policies is it goes to maybe a different section of the policy. There is some information that we do need to review on this one and receive board feedback. So point us in that direction. There's more explicit language about religion and tutorial instruction that will allow parents to receive and students to receive an excused absence, but there's more detailed information within the policy. Again, a PSBA recommendation. And this section right here, under delegation of responsibility, this is a decision for the board. The superintendent or designee shall annually notify students, persons in parental relation, staff, and we have an option, local children and youth agency or local magisterial district judges about the district's attendance policy. So again, that is a conversation for the board in terms of which you would like to select.
What is it now?
Magisterial district judges.
That's the only one that we currently have?
Yes. And it could be both. I would recommend that we check both boxes. I think that provides us with a greater level of coverage. In the event that is something that you think it could be an issue for children and youth to address based on a child's non-attendance. But again, that's where you would have to suspect, and I want to use the word heavily, suspect that there could be something going on within the home related to not necessarily abuse, but neglect.
Could it be an or type of situation, or if we pick both, we have to do both every time?
No, if we pick both, that gives us discretion to choose one or the other. There is no or within this. Typically, if they want to give you a choice, select option A or option B, you would actually see or within that language within the policy. But they didn't provide that as an option. So we can either select one or both, but I do think we have the discretion to decide, because every incident of a child not attending, it could be a parent's best effort to get that child to attend, a 15, 16-year-old kid, and he or she are choosing not to attend school. Doesn't mean it's a matter of neglect. Again, it could be a parent's best effort. That child is actively choosing not to attend, and that's why the referral to the district judge after a student's attendance improvement conference is conducted, we can then move in that direction to a referral to a judge.
So it makes sense to, I would think it makes sense to do both, because then it's your discretion and that's, yeah, okay.
Yeah, as long as we have the discretion, I wouldn't want to go, involving children and youth where it might make the situation worse.
Right.
But having that option is definitely a good thing.
Right. It is our discretion, but having both options selected solidifies when we do make a referral because of suspected neglect to a local children and youth agency in Buxton County.
Anybody else have any comments?
This is a lot to scroll through. I'm a little surprised that it's taking out the section on students experiencing educational instability. I mean, we literally just added that in.
Is that added
It
somewhere
was
else?
just added in.
That's what I was trying to find. I don't see it anywhere else.
I do not believe it is anywhere
Yeah.
else in the document. Now, I will say that you have the discretion for a local decision. Just because it's a PSBA recommendation doesn't mean that we have to implement it. It's their recommendation, and they tell you when they submit these documents to us that is your local decision, and if you have disagreement, something that you can review with your solicitor. So they actively inform districts of that option and that right. I will say that other box, again, this is up to our discretion regarding the superintendent shall require the signature of the person in parental relation, confirming that the policy has been reviewed. A part of that responsibility does fall under the parent. We will post this information, again, similar to report bullying. This is something that should be, once we received this back. This is something that we should also prominently post school attendance within our student handbooks as well as online that's accessible to parents.
Line item 16 touches on homelessness.
Oh, thank you.
In addition, that next subsection, the superintendent or designee, in coordination with building principal, attendance officer, home and school visitor, I think it's a collective responsibility. I would even include, although we don't have to codify it here, other could be a school counselor. So I think those, I would recommend that we check each of those areas focused on the designee of the superintendent, primarily the principal, the attendance officer, which is typically a social worker. And some of the buildings, they have attendance clerks. So that's a little bit different than an attendance officer. So unless there's disagreement, I suggest we check X all of those boxes within that area.
I think that's a good recommendation. I agree.
The next area, simply for review, and I won't read all four of those, but I think these are things that are common practice right now that are just codified within this policy. And I think the most important piece of this in terms of administrative regulations go to that school attendance improvement conference. So when a student hits a certain threshold beyond the absences that are unlawful and not excused, that's when we move into those school attendance improvement conferences, which involves a host of individuals within a school and could, depending on if a student has an IEP or doesn't have an IEP, could also include a special education supervisor. So essentially the goal is to wrap our arms around the student before they get in front of a judge to talk about the reason that they're not attending school. Our goal is to address the matter in advance of that so the student starts to attend school, and then we determine and figure out what's preventing the student, what are the barriers that exist that's stopping a student from attending school.
I actually think that part that's crossed out
Which part?
should be back up, the student experiencing an educational instability, that in the pink, yeah, if you go down.
Okay,
I think
this
that's actually supposed to be up in the definitions section. I don't know if the PSBA has it, but I think that was up in definitions before, because we do still have a line in there that talks about educational instability, and the link to it was the policy. So that, I don't think there's like a state code that they can link to. I think that just needs to get moved back up.
Yeah, a lot of the movement is, something that PSBA did.
Yeah.
And then you could see it moved and brought into a different section without any real rhyme or reason.
Well, I think sometimes they'll take it out of definition if there is like a statewide definition they can link to that.
At times, yes. Correct.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the case for this. But it's semantics, because to Brian's point, line 16 way down further says that, we consider that when we're evaluating a student's absence. We just need to make sure that educational instability is defined somewhere, if it's not in our policy anymore.
And these are just facts of state code in terms of compulsory school attendance requirements. And as you can see, when you look at that middle paragraph, you see a lot of citations there. If you can obviously click on those. These are provisions where students can be excused from requirements of attendance. Most of this is similar to what was in the policy prior.
With this being a more rural community, do we have many students who fall under line number 6 there?
I don't know.
Just curious.
Yeah, I don't know. Because of our area? It's a good question. I haven't, I will say, this particular scenario hasn't been brought to my attention in terms of farm work in particular or private domestic service.
Like our code was written in the 1940s, so.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
wondering,
it is-
where, you know.
It
if
links to that, so.
You clicked on the link?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I guess it would also say you could get married too if you wanted to, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's in there, exactly, that exact wording.
If I receive one, though, I'll let you know.
Yeah, really.
Thank you.
It looks like the school board would have to approve those things
Okay.
from the
That makes
code.
sense.
Now, you'll see discrepancies in these numbers. I tried, I gave up.
Yeah.
I tried
I
to
think
change the numbers. I clicked, I called actually the hotline for PSBA. They did help me with a piece of it, but this was not to no avail. So when they actually, when I send them, once we go through a first reading and second reading, the numbers will actually be accurate. I said no mas. Here's a decision for us. Not what's listed as number 11, which really isn't number 11. And these as well. So these particular areas, if you look at where you see those brackets, those are decisions that the board needs to make. So let's go through them one by one. Again, as an excused absence, participation in the musical performance, and you can see on. So if we think that is an acceptable reason to provide an excused absence for a student, we can check that box.
So this is just in relation to musical performance for veterans or veteran
Correct.
funerals?
It's very,
Am I
very
reading that correctly?
specific.
Okay.
And that's been in there for a while.
I'm sure, yeah.
Because of the
Yeah.
Civil War.
There must have been an issue at one point.
These, I imagine, are hot button issues, and they're leaving up to particular board's discretion.
I would support excusing a student for that reason.
Yeah.
For sure. So if anyone has other thoughts, please share.
I think if there's a student.
Yeah, and I think there's merit in each of those three areas, again, incorrectly numbered. But I do think there's merit in each of those three areas that we offer an option for an excuse. And if it's something that, like especially with the non-school sponsored educational tour or trip, if it's something that the principal feels like they need to dig into a little bit more, they can review it with Dr. Palmer, myself. We can bring it up to Dr. Barrios' level. But at least it gives us the option to consider it. If we don't check that box, it is now an illegitimate excuse regardless of what that non-school sponsored educational trip is. I think there's merit in accepting that as a category that can be excused for students.
I agree.
Other areas, we've always allowed up to a certain limit with prior approval college visits to constitute excused absences, I would say that's something we should continue to do. And then this indicates the district may limit the number and duration of those educational tours, college visits, for excused absences.
I think that's reasonable.
Does it define in here what a non-school sponsored educational tour or trip? Is that in the definition?
Let me go back up. Okay.
Oh.
I think that's the discretion of the principals, what Ernest?
Well, it should be uniform.
Right?
You don't want one school allowing 18 and another school allowing 1. So that's something, I think, within a regulation or, something that we can share with principals, our recommendation in terms of the number of trips. I know in my former district, you were allowed 3 excused college visit days during the course of, I believe, your junior and senior years. And then prior to that, it was up to the discretion of the principal.
And my question was on the definition of the non-school sponsored educational tours or trips.
Mm-hmm.
Like suddenly, every family vacation can become.
I'm going to visit the national park and learn about the history of it.
Right.
So that's why I think we will have to, on those, I think, again, I would advise us to permit that, but then we have to review what that educational trip is. So there's a little bit of discretion.
Do we have a rubric that
we do not
shows that this meets criteria for, or if a family wants to present this, this is check off the boxes.
The policy is broad, intentionally broad like that, so that we can develop ARs based on that,
Right.
identifying how many is acceptable, how many college visits we could have, what constitutes an educational trip, who's the approver of it. So those are things we can develop after the policy.
Right, because Tom, you're right. If I go away for 10 days and I decide, all right, on this one day for 2 hours, we're going to see some museum. So does that mean, and I'm exaggerating, but would those 10 days constitute something? And that's why we have to put parameters in. So
Or if you have the opportunity to take your child on an actual trip and maybe you're a history buff and you want to see all these things.
And there are those who will have legitimate reasons that it will actually be an educational trip. And, so I think we may need to develop some regulation around the idea of what this could look like and develop a rubric around that. So definitely a great recommendation. Because this is, I think, to Dr. Palmer's point, intentionally vague. But it doesn't mean that we have to allow that vagueness to invade our space. So I think it's something that we just will need to develop with the principals.
Give the administration a leeway to determine the how as to our what.
Yep. And this goes to the opening comments that I gave. There's some language in here that defines a little bit more strongly what tutorial instruction looks like, religious instruction, and permissible excusals for those categories. So I'll just let you take a look at that. But again, this is a PSBA recommendation. There's legal citations that go along with it, and that's where you see the brackets at the end with those numbers that we can certainly click into. So that follows code and then gives us merit to have these. And again, this was a part of the original policy, but it's just a little bit more well-defined. there's some discretion here in terms of parental notice of absence.
What are our numbers right now? 3?
Yes.
I wonder if people are finding it easier now that you're able to upload that notice on the school messenger.
I think so.
I know that there's a time, I know it's like within that day you can only do it, and after that, you're no longer able to get in there and edit it. But I do wonder if that makes it a little bit easier for parents.
I would imagine it does, especially, at the elementary age, making sure my kindergartner gets a note to the teacher about her absence is definitely, it's easier just to put it in through Messenger, so.
I think I would recommend that we maintain that 3-day limit. I think it's fair, it's reasonable. I certainly don't think we need to go 5 or above. And they give you that allowance to select other to go above that 5-day threshold. But I think what parents and guardians are used to that have had kids in the district for a number of years is that 3-day threshold. So I don't see any reason to change, but that's a board decision.
I would actually like to see that bumped to 5.
Okay.
5 days to hand in the excuse?
Yeah.
I actually like the 3. I feel like sometimes when you let too much leeway, then people tend to forget. And to your point, also, it's been like that. Not that that's the only reason, but I feel that I don't see. I would like to know, like, why would you want, what's your thoughts around the 5 as opposed to the 3?
Because we had an instance where my daughter was sent home sick from school this year, and I took her to the doctor on Thursday, and I got the note, and then for whatever reason, Friday and then Saturday, Sunday were very busy. I would have liked to have the Monday, Tuesday to get that note.
Oh,
So that's
it's
a good
not
point.
3 business days?
Is it
It's
school
3
days?
calendar days?
I don't know. To be honest,
Should be
it just
I was
says 3
assuming it
days.
was school days.
I
It just
did
says-
too. I
It
made
just
that
says
assumption.
3 days. I don't know.
Maybe we codify with
Yeah,
three.
you explain that with
3
3
school days.
3 school
So
days.
that weekends don't.
That sounds
That would be
reasonable.
great.
don't
Yeah.
count, yeah.
It should be 3 school days, yeah, because you can't
3 days.
physically drop off
If
the
it's 3 school
note if
days,
the.
I'm fine with that, but
Yeah.
weekends are.
That's good
I-
clarification.
We've treated it as 3 school days.
Okay.
I think we can codify that in there as Dr. Barrios, and I think everyone suggested, so that way there's clear language in there. This is, I don't want to call it vague, but it's up to somebody's discretion. I could look at that as 3 business days. You could say, no, that's 3 school, or 3 regular days, including Saturday and Sunday. So if we add language in there to make it 3 school days, I think that helps the conversation and helps parents,
Yeah.
especially if you're going on a Friday.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Palmer, can you make a note of that for me? Because I will forget. You already did it? You're a safe, okay,
got
all
it.
right, my bad.
You may
Little
wanna check
notebook.
next time.
Okay, thank you. All right, somebody cares. There's another area.
And our cumulative number now is 10? That's what it is right now. Right?
I like this sentence.
Yeah.
Ten lawful absences.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a parent writes a note in up to 10 days, and after that, you're required to have a doctor's note. Anything beyond that, once you reach that 10 threshold. So unless there, I certainly don't want to lower it, because I think it's
Is that cumulative or consecutive?
cumulative.
Cumulative? So 8 days total for the school year.
Well, I think we're doing
10
10.
days.
Yeah, I would
10 days.
recommend
Yeah.
10.
8 days,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
How does that go enforcing that? Like, is it successful?
It goes.
Alright.
I mean, it's always a struggle with absences, it's hard. But the state is not that forgiving for us. You know, they identify as a kid as habitually truant when they've missed 10%. And so we have to constantly kind of monitor those and reach out to parents, hey, can we get a note, or, you know, and follow up to make sure we're doing those. So that it takes time.
Do you think absenteeism has gone up since COVID?
Yes, huge. Yes.
So I feel like too. I feel like even like with my kids too, like we would hit it because it's oftentimes hard to even get their appointments in the evenings for different things. For like, I'll cut out early for you, or the donuts cut out for like little quick ones. But I know as a mom, like if, I'm like, well, if you have a fever, I'm just keeping you home, like because I don't want you to give it to other kids.
We're going to send you home anyway.
Yeah, but I'm like,
I
well,
will
also
say,
I'm not
as
gonna
a
take you to the
former
doctor, you have a
teacher, I
fever.
greatly appreciate that. Not
Yeah.
everyone feels that way. People like to send their kids in sick and give them Tylenol and be like, oh, you'll feel better. Or someone will call me in an hour. Like, we don't always appreciate that. But you can expect, you know, your kid's going to get sick once a month, probably at least when they're in school. That's going to add up to 10 days. Like, they're going to get a cold, they're going to get an ear infection, they're going to get it, and it changes. So
I guess 10 days is a lot for the school year. Thinking the calendar year, but for the school year.
That's if it's
Yeah.
a one-day illness, though.
Yeah.
My daughter had strep throat. She was sent home on a Tuesday. She was not back in school until the following week.
yeah, and even though it's lawful and even though it's excused from a doctor or whatever, those kind of things add into a kid who's considered habitually truant. And we look at those kids and we can say, oh, you know, when we go through the list, we can say, oh, this kid, we know what happened with that kid. Oh, look at this kid, we know what happened. And it's identifying the kids who are school avoidant or have other issues that we try to identify. And Mr. Johnson works with the counselors, with
Social workers.
the social workers, trying to do all that kind of stuff to make sure kids are coming in. Penridge does not have a terrible problem with this truancy. There's many places where it's really rampant, but I think there's a fine line here between giving people some grace and caring for their child, and but making sure people are bringing their kids in and they're not missing instruction.
I think that's where my question would just be, you know, what kind of grace are we able to consider in picking the number of days, you know? Things come up, especially, you know, Nathaniel and I both have very young children who love to share germs with their friends. And so I think, you know, mine's home right now with strep throat too. So, you know, what kind of grace are we allowed to give?
I don't think your decision on the days here is going to impact anything with experience.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Thank
I
you.
think that's why it's important to have counselors intimately involved. And when there's communication and collaboration between the parent and the counselor and the social worker and the AP or the principal, there is some discretion and leeway that's given. And although state code is unforgiving, we're going to obviously follow the law. There is some discretion and wiggle room where we can say, we're going to meet, we're going to sit, we're going to talk about it. And we understand, especially when you're working with a medical provider, you're not going to go to a doctor every time your child sneezes, but you as the parent have the discretion to understand, yep, my kid's really sick, and every time they're sick, it doesn't mean I'm going to a doctor. So I think that goes to the trust between the school and those parents, as well as the amount of information that's shared. Where we run into trouble sometimes is when information isn't shared, the school's unaware, we're not sure what's going on, we're calling, and then we have to follow the strict letter of the law because we are uninvolved and we're unaware. And it's not that we want to be in people's business, it's your private medical information, but we do need information once you exceed that threshold of those 10 school days. It certainly makes sense. But again, we want to respect people's privacy while hoping to know that if your child really has a seriously challenging medical situation, we'll work with you. We're not going to bring you before a judge and say, your child's truant and they've had the flu, an ear infection, COVID. One of my kids was just at 2 fairly lengthy absences. I would say 3 to 4 days in a row. It was lengthy, 2 different stints, so they almost hit that 10-day threshold. And it's like, trust me, I wanted them in school. But I communicated with the school, and I didn't want her to share germs. So Anyway. So we have some more, these aren't decisions to make, but we do have some more decisions to look at. Under enforcement, this defines and codifies what we just talked about. So the bold section I want to draw your attention to because that is new. And I think this is important where it talks about, because sometimes parents, when their kids are habitually truant, they'll move them to a particular charter school, cyber charter school, to avoid that whole truancy process. And this right here is a recommendation to eliminate that. There's also part B where this serves to educate parents and provide them with resources, which I think is really important. I think that's something we've already done, but it's just codified within this particular part of the PSBA recommendation. So I'll let you read through that.
Would we allow a student to transfer to our cyber academy in that case of A?
I would have to ask, I think I would defer to Mike Miller on that and ask him for his legal advice. Because I think sometimes when you're still a Penridge student, so I'm not a legal scholar, didn't go to law school, but I would imagine that that may be an avenue where this is speaking to other types of cyber charter school, although it's vague. So again, I would defer to Mike and ask him to look at the language of the law and determine whether or not that's permissible.
Yeah, I would doubt that there's restrictions because it does a cyber charter school, and we're just running our cyber academy, which is not a charter school. So I think we have that leeway to make those.
Still a Penridge student again.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I was hoping.
Yep.
The language here, and we already have this as a part of our process, the School Attendance Improvement Conference, which again allows that relationship to be developed between the student, the parent, and the school, and that collaboration to occur to hopefully change the pattern of absences for that student. So this just goes into that process. Not a change. Talks about habitually truant students, not a change, just a shift in where the language is written. And redundancy, that part in bold. This part goes in the filing a citation, not any changes, just shifting where that is. There's legal citations that go with this as well. Discipline, not a change.
I think the rest is just crossing out.
Yeah, and the crossing out is partly due to some moves. You'll see similar language throughout. Any concluding questions or comments? I felt like that was like looking at rezoning. All right, I'm going to move to the next policy. Now, I think we all remember the change for this particular policy was strictly related to Act 44, Dr. Barrios sent out information. I think I sent out information. We've already had, I think, one test run with this where we did have to initiate a notification to families. The only other change to this, I'm going to scroll there. Rather interesting. Here it is. This is the only thing we need to really look at. In that bracketed area in green, again, I'll let you read it, but that's a board decision. And essentially, the question is, do we want those types of violations to be reported to local law enforcement?
So if I live 1,000 feet across the street from an elementary school and I go hunting, I'm in violation.
Yeah. I don't think you can hunt.
Yes. If we check the X.
Right.
If we don't check the X, you can do.
I can still, I mean, I'm not saying I would discharge, right? But
Right.
just me having,
Yeah, it says possession or,
Right.
point, possession or discharge.
or discharge, right?
Sounds like that's a federal law, that you cannot be outside waving a gun around.
Yeah, but that doesn't say that. Possession, I can have it in my home. So can I now not have that gun in my home that I want to go hunting with? Because I live right across the street from a school.
I'm going to guess that that's not the meaning of the law, that the federal law doesn't say that, that you can't have it in your home, but I think we can get Mike Miller to weigh in on
Yeah, because
that
I mean,
portion
right,
of it.
it's in accordance with the federal law, possession or discharge of a firearm in, on, or within 1,000 feet of the school grounds is prohibited. So possession is prohibited.
So I do think there's merit, as Dr. Palmer just suggested, and there's legal citations connected to it, to have Mike Miller weigh in on that. Get his legal counsel regarding this particular item. And I think that's why it's on there, and that's why PSBA didn't, it wasn't a recommendation for us to have it, but that's, again, a local decision, and that's why it's, those brackets are there for us to select it or not to select it. So I think having Mr. Miller weigh in and provide us with guidance will help us make an informed decision.
In the definitions, it has possession defined as a student, so maybe that's specifically to a student, not to you owning your home across the street.
That's a good point.
I do still think we'll have Mike take a look at it, but thank you for checking the citation. Any other comments or questions regarding that? Again, the major change of this was the provision under Act 44 and the reporting requirements by schools, which, again, we have already done that one time. Now, the update to this particular policy, again, and I think I started with when we were reviewing the policy update plan, this is really about PA school code and coordination between the district's threat assessment team and local law enforcement with jurisdiction over the property of that particular school. And then there's one area for choice under this policy, which we will review. Again, one real change and then a choice for the board. And again, this is reflective of that change for within state codes. Here's language on training. and again, a choice. The recommendation I have, I think that it's been a positive experience with local law enforcement and the school district, and for those individuals to participate in trainings when needed within a school. I think it provides a level of comfort for the staff. And if you, on the occasion that you visit our schools, you may see an officer of the law, a detective, any law enforcement person visiting the schools and walking around, talking to the students, talking to the staff, orienting themselves to the building in the case of an emergency. So I think that's just a positive relationship between the district and local law enforcement, which I think is something that we should continue. And again, in the event that there are trainings that we think that they should become a part of, continuing that partnership with the local law enforcement, I think is positive.
Can they look at this policy too and make sure
Absolutely.
we're secure? Just see if there's anything in there that they think wouldn't work. The next one, too.
You said the next?
Yes. Like, I'm gonna notice this is what they do. Like, a lot of these make sense to me, but I don't like how they're actually applied in schools, if there's anything that
Yeah, I know they've
is
enjoyed
tricky.
their relationships with the schools
Yeah.
and with the staff. But yeah, we can certainly share that with them and actually ask the question, are there things that they would like to participate in?
Oh, I was thinking more talking with our security staff around this. I'm sorry, not the, hold on.
Yeah, this is really more about local Hilltown Police, Percy
Right.
Regional, as opposed to guards and our school police officer. This is those outside entities that we want to build partnerships with.
But we
This
would still do
particular-
it through them, right? Like through our,
Yeah, they would be coming into our space within our trainings, not initiating trainings for the school, but participating.
I'm sorry, I'm using too many pronouns. When I say they would come in through our security staff though, right? Like Joe Gallo would like be working with them.
Yes.
The local law enforcement. So that's more what I mean, like, can we like Joe or someone from his group just take a look at this?
Oh,
to
yeah,
be like-
absolutely.
Not the local law enforcement. I apologize. I was
Yes, we
not
are,
mapping my.
Joe and I meet to review these
Perfect.
matters, and he does meet regularly, monthly, with all of the chiefs to review this kind of stuff, and they also talk about their trainings they're going to, when they might use our facilities. They're doing a mapping assessment right now, so we have things that are going on with our local police force.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like, if I'm the only one, if no one else is interested, I was just thinking maybe have Joe just look at these policies. I'm sure. Seems kosher.
Yeah, and we shared the updates with him with we had some other updates that we needed to follow up with Joe on about trainings that we have, some internal things that need to be done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And to your point, Mrs. Rash, Joe Gallo really becomes important when we look at this next one. Because 805.2 is specific to his particular role, and the updates to this particular policy relate directly to the school safety and security coordinator. And these changes are related also to PA school code. This is the one where I think he should really invest time in looking at, because it directly impacts what he does and his role and the expansion of it based on this particular policy. So I'm going to stop at this point. Now, there's no 30 date we already have. We're not looking for a school safety and security coordinator. But there is some language in here about their oversight. We do not have SROs, as we all know. But we do have security guards, and we do have an SPO, and he does oversee those individuals. So we would be checking everything outside of school resource officers.
Quick question, what is the difference technically between a school police officer and a school resource officer?
School police officer is hired by us. It's a Penridge employee, and presently we have one, Mr. Dan Branch. A school resource officer, it would be a Hilltown police officer, Penridge Regional, that works at the school.
Stationed here? Okay.
Stationed at a school's,
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
It's worthy to note, we did apply for a grant to get a school resource officer a couple of years ago. We supported Chief Dickinson at Penridge Regional, and the federal grant did not go through, but we had an interest in it. Tried.
Can we do that again?
Absolutely. He comes back to us and needs a letter of support, and you have to do that.
So these are the next couple of items I'm going to point to are changes. And again, this particular policy, these updates were related to state code. And this is one of the recommendations, which I think is, and we may already be doing this. Dr. Palmer may know more than I do about this particular aspect, but it's suggesting that the school safety and security coordinator meet with school employees annually for input.
Yes, and Officer Gallo joins us at our monthly principal meetings and shares information with the principals, gets informations and questions from him. He's also a part of our safety committee that meets monthly throughout the district, so each of our departments checks in at the safety committee.
And then again, more updated language, meetings with building leadership, which I think Dr. Palmer has already addressed. This part, the school safety and security coordinator must complete additional continuing education as required by the school safety and security committee. May. Says must complete. I don't know if we have any continuing education that we require Mr. Gallo to complete at this point.
Do we require any sort of continuing education for that position currently? No?
He does participate in continuing education programs. They get certified again and again, so they go and get updated with their resources, in addition to the other things they get.
Okay, good, thank you.
And these are additional decisions. I believe number 3 is actually something that we do. Number 4, I'm going to ask Dr. Palmer to address those last remaining items in terms of what we do in terms of the school, the role of the school safety and security coordinator. Again, these are not must-haves, these are decisions at a local level. Now, I would suggest we check off on 4 and 5. I think that's helpful information to have from Mr. Gallo. Safe to say something aggregate data. I don't know if that needs to be a function of his role within the schools, but I think it's certainly something that Dr. Palmer and I could take a look at in our roles as in being obviously the assistant super in my role in student services. Again, I'm not sure that's something that he should be managing, or perhaps it's the 3 of us. As you review this, is there anything you think might be, I think the better way to look at this, is there anything you think might be inappropriate for the role of the school safety and security coordinator, something that we should not check?
I wonder if number 7 might be better put under someone else. I'm not sure specifically on, the access that he has to that kind of information, but I would imagine someone in like a social worker type capacity might be better equipped to present that data.
Yeah, I think it might be outside of the scope of the function of his responsibility, so I think that's a great idea. So I would recommend that we not check number 7. Again, specifically for his role.
I feel like the rest seem pretty reasonable. Okay.
Yeah, and again, these are the things that would be reported to the board annually. We have that meeting at the end, so I think that's the only change I would make. Yeah.
What's the change you would make, Dr. Palmer?
Number 7.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that necessarily has to be a part of that report. Not that it's
Another
not important.
decision here about the SPO, the role of the SPO. And I do know our school police officer does carry a firearm in accordance with the law, obviously. Has to go through training, so this is already being done. I would suggest we check that box.
I support that.
We also have school security guards. So we would be checking this box to fulfill our legal obligations and the citations that are connected to that. Our school security guards do not carry firearms. So we will not be checking that box.
There are some schools that don't have school police officers or school resource officers, and they might use their security guards that might be armed, but not for us.
We do have an MOU with local law enforcement. I would defer to Mike on this one. I'm not sure. There appears to be a difference because they do reference MOUs versus cooperative police service agreements. So I would defer to him to provide us with a recommendation. We have one more policy. Don't get excited. I'm going to pause for a second before I pull it up.
And it's great, and we're fine. Let's go.
Oh,
Keep rolling, let's speed this up.
Actually, don't see any green on this.
I've been fast.
Yeah. 15.
All right, so this is a brand-new policy to Penridge. Several districts adopted policies over the last year or two related to generative AI. And I know you have already reviewed this policy. Let me make it smaller. And I mean, the purpose, I think we all understand the purpose and the reason for having an AI policy, and then rolling into an AI procedure, administrative regulation. So that would be the next step after we review this policy. I think the purpose is very clear. Authority, you see a lot of legal language, and I think that might be 20 legal citations that obviously we do not need to review. Is there any general feeling by the board about an AI policy, or in your review of the information, that any concerns that you may have? There are some decisions that need to be made, but as you reviewed this, is there anything that stood out to you?
Is there a system, I believe this answer before, I'm not sure. Is there a system that the teachers already have, more so for high school, to see if a child generated a report that's AI? Is there something, software, something that the teacher will know, aside from like the fonts are different or things like that, or the report doesn't make sense? Is there something that our teachers currently have?
I don't know if there's something that we formally use, because again, we don't have a specific policy on it. But I would almost bet the $0 I have in my pocket that there are teachers that will plug information into an AI system, determine whether or not, but there's nothing uniform that we as a district, this is what we use within a platform. And I think that's why we need to move to an administrative regulation on the topic, because when we are to do that, then we could have something a lot codified within the schools for teachers to be able to use.
To use it. And I think I did read also that it also states that it's not to be used for teachers to grade papers. They have to read through it, right? I did read that. Okay.
So one decision here, the district, and the reason this one is not in green is because it's brand new to us, so there's no changes, there's no additions. The district shall obtain prior informed consent from parents or guardians before allowing a student to use AI tools and resources in school.
Like, knowingly, or use them in general?
I think knowingly.
Okay, like as part of a class.
That's what I was going to say. Would it be also part of a certain class that they're taking? Would it be something that's, because not obviously maybe wouldn't be used as much maybe in elementary as opposed to certain classes? So is this just a one and done form that they're looking at, or depending on the class?
It could be an annual form. I would think that we would develop a form that would be annual, and perhaps that legal citation would draw us to something or some sort of recommendation. But I would imagine similar to like a responsible use, something that they would do every year at the start of the school year, something that's sent over the summer, that information that's sent to parents where we would say that we need your consent in order to do this.
Why do we need consent to do this?
That's up to, that's.
Okay,
I
why
think-
do we, why would we?
Why would we want to?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good.
I think there's data that's gathered with AI, kind of, similar to any kind of electronic data that we're gathering on someone, on, things a kid is inputting into things. AI is so new, in my opinion, still, that the ethics around it have yet to be built in a sustainable way. And so I think if you're blanket, allowing these things, that you may run afoul of some data usage issues that parents could take issue with and want to opt their child out of. There's certainly things that I would want to opt my child out of. I think in developing this policy, it'll be really important to consider the lines that we draw, in that, for instance, I think it's perfectly acceptable for a teacher to, help them design a lesson plan or a study guide around something, and they're putting in their own information. But then you go the next step of, hey, ChatGPT, create my whole school year's lesson plans for me. And then you run into, maybe some information is inaccurate. So being really careful around that stuff. I would definitely support obtaining parents' permission for using at least certain AI resources.
So, that's kind of what I expected, but we do have a section under here, under the students, and what we would be instructing them. District shall provide training for students, which may include but not be limited to a number of things. The importance of not disclosing personally identifiable information when using an open source generative AI tool or resource. So if we were to have parents opt their students out of any sort of instruction, they wouldn't be getting that as part of their lesson either. So if they were to be part of it, that would be part of the lesson.
Right, so I think, looking at the individual cases and make sure we're building this policy to consider those instances, maybe in the future we have a class on ethical use of AI, that's a whole nother consideration of permission. I did see in here, there is a section about allowing teachers to use it to formulate lesson plans. And in my own profession, as a veterinary technician, we have asked AI to treat a horse with colic. And they give you bad recommendations. And so, things that would kill your horse. And so I want to be careful there too, that we're not crossing a line where, I think there's some very good utility in AI for teachers to help them be more efficient in, creating things. But I want to make sure that we're not just creating entire school years out of AI too.
I understand those concerns and I would share them, but I do feel like this policy addresses those concerns. For both staff and students, there's a section here saying critical analysis of content produced by generative AI. So like what you're talking about, not just taking whatever is outputted by it, but to actually criticize and analyze it, to create literacy around it. It's sort of like, don't cite Wikipedia directly, but cite their source. If their source is reputable. So, I do agree with your point about just caution. It is a very new tool that we are still discovering a ton about.
I think also looking at the potential costs going forward too, and how learning can be equitable for all of our students as these programs are developed. They are becoming monetized. They're not all free. So what kind of costs are we as a district willing to incur to, evaluate which programs will allow to be used? Is another thing that we should probably talk about, that I'm curious to hear everyone's thoughts on. Because we don't want one student, able to afford some program to help them in their class, whereas another student may not be able to afford that.
I think the district would supply the tool, right? So they wouldn't be using anything that we weren't okay, because part of the policy also is saying that we have to make sure that it isn't reaching out to sexually explicit, all the same things we do when they open up an internet browser on their laptop. So I think we would be responsible for that component of it. There shouldn't be one student has one version and another person has another. Yeah, I'm torn with the permission, because there is a lot we're still learning about AI, and I think AI is learning about us much faster than we're learning about it, which is very scary. And so I understand that trepidation of but I also worry that when we ask for permission, we're already creating this so that you should be nervous, where I feel like this is the place for kids to, because we will have all these protections up, that this is the place for your student to start learning how to use AI responsibly. So, because we have set up these protections that most parents can't at home. It's already gone when they have to put it on, obviously. And so I'm torn, because I understand there's a lot that's not known about it, and parents might be hesitant, but I also don't want to create a fear of it by saying we're asking, by asking permission, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm definitely torn in the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, here's what I would recommend. I think we're all torn, and because of the speed of change of AI, I think maybe we table this. We don't have to there's a reason there's a second reading, that we look at this, we see it, it's live for us right now, it's real, and then we, individually figure out what we think is the best approach. We also may want to ask Mike Miller from a legal standpoint what he thinks about this. And I know we keep referring to him, but these are very important decisions that we're making. And I think some of it should have some legal scrutiny to it from someone who went to law school.
And I'd also want to understand like what admin thinks too about, because when we asked for opt out or opt in, is there something like pays or photographs that like kind of funnel through one person, and pays is like a one day that they're doing it. I think it is a little more difficult when it's like throughout our curriculum, or to expect our teachers to go through it and be like, okay, you've got to step out while we're doing. I think that becomes a bit cumbersome. So.
I was going to say, one of the things we're already doing is looking very closely at making decisions about applications we're using. This is going to change every year. There's going to be a very fluid thing. AI is going to be integrated into all applications, I'm sure, at some point, in textbooks and the digital resources we have. So probably for us, we'll create, along with what we're already creating for approval, we're going to have the curriculum department look at it. We're going to have the technology department look at it. We're going to have the business department. And there will be something when we send this out at the beginning of the year to parents, when we have people sign off on these kind of things. We want to make sure that they are compliant, that they are compliant with COPA, that they're compliant with FERPA, that they're actually correct, that we're not going to be doing something inappropriate for kids.
COPA is the Child Online Privacy Act.
So we are trying to get to the point where our ARs now provide those kind of steps and checks and balances. So I think this would just be one more thing that we would add to that list of things that we'll be checking.
This isn't too unlike, I mean, I think all of us are of the age to remember when the internet came around and we were getting taught about the internet, how to use it, the dangers of it, the benefits of it. It's not any different than that. It's a new technology, but if we had not received instruction around the internet, we would be way behind our peers once we did graduate.
Well, my middle school teacher had calculators that were glued to a piece of wood that he passed out to everyone, and thought that that was going to ruin math education. That hasn't happened. So I think we'll be okay. We'll find a way to manage it, and I wouldn't be too worried about it taking over our children. So we'll handle it.
The next area for consideration, I think we talk about who we think would be inappropriate under these 6 plus other areas to authorize, evaluate, and authorize AI tools and resources. Obviously, I think the superintendent, director of information technology, solicitor, and director of curriculum and instruction, which is teaching and learning, are the most appropriate to review, evaluate, and authorize those tools. Again, in the development of an AR, we would also provide information that supports this. But those would be my recommendation of the people that are determining and evaluating and authorizing. Obviously, at the highest level being the superintendent.
Could you repeat your recommendation again?
Yeah, I would recommend we select the superintendent, the solicitor, the IT director, and the director of curriculum instruction.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts or concerns? I'm going to leave this section under students up for a second, just so we can look at that. And I think these areas, there was staff right above that, are somewhat vague. And again, I think it prompts the district to develop an administrative regulation on this particular topic.
One other thing I wanted to call out here, because I think it's a talking point out and about, is under our ethical considerations, this policy says the district prohibits the use of generative AI in making decisions regarding employee recruitment, hiring, retention, promotion, transfer, evaluation, demotion, or dismissal. That's something that I see in my circle a lot, people lamenting that it is being used in that capacity. So I'm glad that we're taking a stance that people should be hiring people.
I agree.
Excellent point. In the next section about academic integrity, I'll leave that up for a second because that's important as well. And there is an area for choice. And I think for here, when we develop an administrative regulation, I think that is something that should be a component if teachers are, maybe not in their lesson plans, but in a syllabus or syllabi, something that teachers should outline in terms of AI tools and resources. So maybe a different spin on it. I'm not sure if lesson plans is necessary, but certainly within and every teacher may not have a syllabus that they're delivering to students at the start of the semester or when a new course arrives, or some teachers send out information on assignments during the summer, in particular for AP and honors kids. So again, I think for teachers that have a syllabus, that's something that we may want to incorporate depending on the development of that administrative regulation. And it does say shall, which is that must, not necessarily. Any thoughts?
I'll be honest, I'm hating fast. I'm trying. I've been here 5 hours, so I'm like a little tired. Like, I think this is a really good policy, but I'm struggling to see if like the details are what I want it to be.
I mean, is it possible to get an information session designed around just this policy?
Yeah, I think there's.
Like with that, I feel like, right, we're
Yeah.
going back to Mike Miller a lot, and this is so
Yeah.
new, and this is so heavy and important that to be able to make some of these decisions and look at this, I think we need to have real conversation with input.
Yeah,
I think
or
that's a
even
great
at the
idea.
next committee meeting, honestly. Like, even if Mike's not here, but I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
and
is like
he
too
has
much for
input in it.
like.
Yeah, like.
This is too much for one.
This is the first reading, right?
Right,
Yeah.
it is, and it
So we
is
can-
just the first
But
reading.
we
can
could
just
do
do- we
first
can-
reading again, too.
Yes.
Like, if
We don't
feel
have to
like
rush
just-
this.
No, but we
Yeah.
can agree to table it for the evening and
Yes.
Yeah.
come back, I think.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea,
Yeah.
especially like since
It is
this was
been a
our
long-
first
been a long
discussion.
year.
Now we
I'm
can all kinda
trying, I'm really
marinate
trying to
on
be like,
it.
what's a good idea? And I'm like, I can't. I have no more good ideas.
I think even still, like just marinate on it, and then because like you said, like I'm not trying to come off as like I don't support AI because I absolutely see the value in it, but I just want to make sure we're being careful enough,
Tom's point, it's important, it's heavy, it's
Yeah.
serious.
And because it is, maybe it could be the only policy then that we're looking at as opposed to 5 other ones. If
Yeah.
we just focus on this one
Yeah.
and then get Mike's, can't be here, get his overview on everything beforehand for this committee meeting.
Yeah. I like that idea.
And not have 7 other policies to review. at
That's
the
what I'm saying,
next
just this
committee
one.
meeting,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Just this
I mean, I know I'm not on this committee technically, but this is, if we can look at, how do we handle that? And making sure that these meetings, to be productive, right? I think we have to limit.
Well, I think this one is more so
Yeah.
just because it's new.
Yeah.
The other ones weren't. So that I understand, but when you're looking at something that's totally new and it's the last one that's presented, I think it makes sense for it to be the only one that's presented for the
A lot of
evening, so we
unknowns
can
in
have
this
that.
right
Yes.
now. It's a gray area, and it's intriguing. intriguing and it's frightening all at the same time, so.
It's the new internet, it's the new cell phone.
I'm more afraid of getting it wrong than I am of what it is.
We're all gonna die. Yeah.
It has detailed files.
All right, I'm going to bow out. Yeah.
I
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so
That was very meaty,
Yeah, this is
and I think
good.
there was a lot of really great discussion around all of these policies. So, thank you, everyone. That concludes the policy meeting. The next policy committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, March